this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as we have the invocation by Councilman.
Lord, thank you for this opportunity to come and serve this town. We just pray for your wisdom tonight, and we just pray for protection of those that are out working and those that are protecting us in other countries. And we just thank you that we have this opportunity to meet here and give us the wisdom we need. In your name, amen.
Amen. Roll call.
Roll call, Councilmember Crowder.
Here.
Councilmember Colton.
Here.
Councilmember Tran. Here. Vice Mayor Boland.
Here.
And Mayor Lasson.
Here. Okay, we'll go on to item 1E, Amy Rohr from Valley Contractor Exchange to present building trends and data. Hey there.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Amy Rohr. I'm the Executive Director of Valley Contractors Exchange, which is a not-for-profit construction association here in Butte County. It's also worth noting I have the honor of serving on your Town of Paradise Housing Committee, on the Campfire Collaborative Board, and I'm also a general contractor. My husband and I are builders up here in Paradise. So rebuilding statistics are deeply personal to me. I know I won't be as entertaining as the presidential debate tonight, but I will do my best. So, as I'm sure you're aware, once again, Paradise was named the fastest growing town in California from California's Department of Finance. Leaps and bounds amongst the competition at 16.1%. But we still have a lot of work to do, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you're not aware of. As of, I know you focus on Town of Paradise statistics, and this is kind of a comprehensive view between the county and the town. So as of the end of August, 25% of the total homes lost in the campfire. Sorry, I should catch up. Who's driving? Thanks, Mark. Okay, I'll go slower. I'll talk fast. Thanks, Mark. Next slide. Yeah, Power. All right. As of the end of August, 25% of the total homes lost in the campfire received a certificate of occupancy, with, as I'm sure you know, 28.24% in the Town of Paradise and almost 15% of Butte County. I note there the numbers that's based on. I hope they coincide with Colette's numbers over there. So really, these statistics demonstrate the unique challenges of rebuilding in rural California. You'll notice that 14.9% of the 14.9% of rebuilds in the county that received the certificate of occupancy, slightly less of them half are a manufactured home, compared to 58.2% of rebuild in the county and 22% being manufactured in the town. And it's interesting to me that the farther away the community is from urban areas, the greater the percentage of manufactured homes. So comparing apples to apples, Chico, which is mostly Butte Creek Canyon, is 22.6% manufactured homes, which really coincides with the Town of Paradise, which is right in there. It's right just about 22% as well. And then Paradise, the unincorporated areas, is 25%. And then going into Concal and up into Magalia, you're at over 55%. Oops, I have to remember to flip forward. There we go, those are those numbers, so sorry. Ooh, I went too far. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry? I can't hear you. I will talk louder, no problem. I can project. There's a lot going on here, and I'll boil this down into quarterly statistics, but we're displaying the number of new permits received, permits issued, and permits being filed for the town and unincorporated Butte County. So you'll see number spikes in building permits, and this is being, in all phases. So you'll see the 3-year building code cycle changes, which is that large spike in December of 2022. So as long as you got your permit in there or thereabouts, the town did a really unique thing last time. The code cycle changes and allowed contractors to up to another week, I think, to get their building permits in, which was wonderful for them and for us. And then you'll also notice small spikes when the pro-rata payments have been dispersed by PG&E. The first one in March of of 2021, you'll see a little increase in building permit applied for at that time, and then moving forward, you see a little people get people that are a little more jaded and realize it takes a lot longer for those disbursements to be released than we thought. So that's that. But what this means is construction starts in Butte County, or in Butte County in general, Campfire, Burnskow, Town of Paradise. So again, you'll see this big spike in December of 2022. We've got a lot of permits applied for, and then waiting to break ground, just for the county and the town to do their job to get those permits approved. So large spike when the building code changed, as well as winter weather, and then, of course, the softening of the housing market, which interest rates began climbing in August of 2022 and through latter 2022. All right. Okay, this is where we get into it. So everybody wants to know what's going on out there. So the first column we have are pre-fire owners that are rebuilt, and what we're doing is taking the building permit data supplied by both the town and the county, and those wonderful spreadsheets y'all compile, matching that against MLS records. So the first group are assumed to be pre-fire owners. They didn't have a lot sale on MLS, and they didn't have a sale after the home was finalized and finalized through construction, so it received that COO. The second column are pre-fire owners that we assume have rebuilt and then sold. So there was no lot sale on MLS prior to the building permit being issued, but once that was finalized, then we can see an MLS record. The next one is not pre-fire owner, so those could be people within our own community, which I think is Paradise Ridge Chamber of Commerce did a really great job quantifying where those people are coming from. Those would be people that had a lot sale pre-permit, and then no home sale after the home was finalized. What you probably care about is the number of spec homes. So turquoise color is the number of spec stick homes built, and then manufactured homes built. And I break those into two groups for our own local contractors, because it affects us both for the suppliers, the sub-trades, all that. They want to know that. And from a fire life and safety perspective, I think it's something to consider as well. So that's a lot of data. Let's break it down into years. So you can see first in 2020, largely in 2021, overwhelmingly campfire survivors returning. That began to even out more towards 2022 and then into 2023, and you'll notice the number of spec single-family residences and spec manufactured homes, if you add those together, is 189, which we just surpassed fire survivors returning. So if we're going to talk about how we're going to repopulate this town, we might want to start with spec builders out there. And then to date, in 2023, through the end of August, 85 survivors have rebuilt and returned, 4 survivors have rebuilt and sold, 51 have been rebuilt by new owners, no matter where they come from. There are people working on that. I don't have the answers to that. And then 97 spec homes have been built that are stick, and then 22 manufactured spec homes have been placed. This is what us builders care about, price per square foot. So it's bottom line, even through the ups and downs in the housing market and interest rates, it's stayed pretty consistent. The one interesting trend I'm noting right now is that in 2024, there's a lot more homes being either purchased and put up for rent, or known developers that don't have an MLS sale that I call. American Dreams is a great example of that. Hey, American Dream, we built 4 houses on this one street. No MLS sale, what's going on? They're renting them. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Yeah, you can make what you will of that, but I found it interesting. Okay. I would offer to you that this is important, not just for campfire recovery, but it's really, our whole region depends on repopulation of campfire burn scar, and in particular, since you are 75% of it, Town of Paradise. So Dr. Stan Eiler facilitated a series of discussions with local policymakers and industry partners focused on what the Butte County economy in 2030 looks like. I think Colette, you participated, Kate Anderson participated, county participated, and it's bleak. And it really, really depends on Paradise repopulating. At 25% of the homes lost right now, you can compare that to 2018. It's not pretty. So no pressure, Paradise, we're all counting on you. Barriers to reconstruction, this is not new to you. It's insurance, it's geography. When Valley's Edge failed, I can't even tell you how many people said, I don't understand why wouldn't people just go build in Paradise? It's not apples to oranges. We don't know where infrastructure is. The lots aren't flat. You have to consider a raised foundation. I could go on and on, but you've got barriers. Infrastructure will help, and then, of course, uncertainty in the housing market. And you have a lot, pun intended, going for you. Reasonably priced land, thank you for that. No development impact fees, your pre-approved master plans, the BRIC, your engaged staff. I mean, people will hold your hand all along the way, so I cannot commend your staff enough. From the housing department to your building department, they're amazing. And then the new roads, new schools, amazing recreational opportunities, it's just a good bet. So we just need to do a better job of getting the word out there. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I did my job. Yes, ma'am.
Was it 2023 that it was $275 per square foot? Or was that?
Yes, it spiked in 2021. Thank you. Let me get in there. In 2021, it was spiked at 288, and then in 2022, and this is average, so this is just the spec homes, right? People, the fire survivors that rebuilt and sold, I didn't take those into account because I didn't figure land cost in there, so this is true development cost. So in 2022, it's $278 a square. But really, we're still right in there, between $275 and the heyday of $288 grand to 2021.
So that's cost of sale. What cost to rebuild right now?
It depends on the square footage. So as a general rule, your smaller homes are going to cost more per square foot than larger homes because we still need bathrooms, we still need kitchens. So the small Hope House, they're on average, without having data in front of me, I would say they're right in 300, maybe a little over 300 square foot. I'm sorry, the Hope House, with the garage, with, smaller square footage homes. Those are going to be more like 300 square foot. When you get into larger homes, unless there's crazy finishes, crazy architectural details, woodwork, all that good stuff, that really, it's the finishes that drive up the price of the house, not the square footage. So the larger you go, generally, the less per square foot you're going to pay. But again, you have to take into account finishes.
The final question, what do you think accounts for, because between 21 and 22, that was a pretty big drop. And do you feel that's due to the raise of the interest rates and the economy and things like that?
In 2020 to 2021, no, it was just a favorable time, right? You've got people at home, you've got COVID busting out. That's before we saw the developers, the builders that were that had already started weren't necessarily subject to all those increased material, supply chain issues. So you've got favorable building conditions along with low interest rates, along with people stuck at home. And Vice Mayor Bowen, please feel free to disagree with me if there's anything I said you don't agree with, because I know you do this for a living, so your insight is always welcome.
Well, you're right on with this stuff. I mean, it's variable because of custom homes are more.
Yeah.
They cost more, but, spec homes are going to be less. So, it's very good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, we'll move on to item 1F, project updates presented by Paradise Irrigation District.
Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to give a brief update on many of the projects that affect y'all and us at the same time. Obviously, the big one is our meter installation service lateral replacement, which is the replacing of service laterals at every lot that was destroyed. We have so far completed 6,500 of those, and we have 2,500 left to go till we're done. We anticipate that project ending late 2025 right now, roughly November, December. Yep. We've installed 7,100 meters. We have about 1,400 of those left to install. So that lets you know that of those 2,500, about 1,100 of them are actually just going to vacant lots. That's not anyone who even wants water at this point, but we're doing them all, so we're done. And backflows, we've installed 5,300 of those across town, and we have 960 of those left to install. We are currently working on the 2025 paving area, so paving that, I believe, is supposed to start April 1st of next year. We just started working on that. We have 620 laterals to get done before that paving is completed. That's going to, depending on weather, it's going to take us about 3 to 4 months to get those done. So if we have a light winter, not a ton of rain, we could be done in January. Depending, rain, it could take us up to the deadline of trying to beat your paving. Currently, our crews, we have 5 working, and it can vary a lot depending on USA markings, which kind of got slowed down with the paving because they're out marking, everyone has to mark all the roads that are being paved right now, so it kind of slows down all groups doing that. But we're getting roughly 70 to 80 laterals a week done. So we've upped up our production more than double since early this year by adding another crew and focusing more, going street by street instead of having to go like we did at the beginning, where it was everyone who was requesting water, we were having to jump from spot to spot in town. Now we're able to go street by street mostly. We have one crew that does just building permits as they come out, and so they jump around wherever from town, from spot to spot. But the other 4 crews are focused just on the roads that are going to be getting paved. Our other major project is mains replacement project. We're in phase 1 of that. That is a 5.6 miles we're doing in that one. We've completed 2.7, so we're about halfway done with that. And we anticipate that phase being completed about fall of '25. We have another phase that we're getting ready to put out for design right now. That's another roughly 10 miles, and that's going to take about another 3 years. Another just big project, not too much of an effect on your projects, but we have the Zone A pump station and pipeline project that we've been working on. That's to add another water feed from our water treatment plant down to the town of Paradise. Right now, there's only one line that feeds the entire town, so if anything happens to that line, we're out of water. And that's an old line, but we have maintained it pretty well over the years. But we have a new one, a 16-inch that should be in service about mid-October, that runs down Skyway and goes right to the A tank and connects to the rest of our infrastructure at Pence. And then one other one we have is Henson Road Culvert, where that road got damaged during the fire, and then with heavy traffic over it, the road's been closed off from through traffic since 2018. We're going through environmental and going through a lot of standards and working with FEMA to be able to bring it up to current standards, because it wasn't. And so that one we're expecting to be done maybe summer of next year. And I think those are our main projects. I've been working with Mark Maddox and his group. We talk all the time on all the projects, so we're trying to keep in front of all your major projects that we know of, and as best we can as they're coming along. Any questions?
Yeah, so it looks like your laterals, you're on course to stay up, but the mains, you say the mains will be 3 years?
Yes, the mains will be 3 years.
Does that conflict with our schedule?
Yes, we are going to be in roads that have been paved or are going to be paved. There's nothing to be done about it. Oh, yeah, we have to follow the moratorium standard and repave them. That's going to be part of the project. Unfortunately, with how rebuild has been, it's not something we could push any faster or get done any sooner.
And what constitutes the mains being replaced? Is it total failure of them, or is it just, they're aging out?
Some were total failure. They were all damaged by the campfire,
right.
Either VOCs or things like that.
Okay.
So, like I say, the total failures, we're still working on getting some people water who haven't had water since 2018.
Really?
Yeah, we're getting one in just this next week that it's been down since 2018. So we're getting them as we can done.
So, I understand that the challenge, but we're going on 6 years.
Yes.
And, you know, it's, to me, you guys should have jumped on it sooner, because to ask our citizens to go 3 years beyond our progress of paving roads, that you're going to turn around and tear up again. I mean, that's just not a good place to be, and I don't really think it was a necessary place to be. And I'll tell you, people, I'm not happy. And I think you guys should have done a better job, and I'm really disappointed to hear this.
Well, I understand that. I wasn't here at the beginning. I've only been at the district for 3 years. We got it rolling as soon as I got there. They didn't have an engineer in-house until I came on board since the campfire. We got that project going when we could. I know one of the hangups was funding. With FEMA, as I know you're all aware, you have to pay up front and get refunded. I don't think the district had the money at the time to be able to pay for those projects up front.
So what's the holdup for the 3 years? What's in front of you that says that you can't pull it up any at all?
That's just a time frame of getting it completed.
Okay, is a contract let already? Is it under construction? It's going to take long, or, you know, again, I know there's phases. I'm just wondering, what phase are you in the project? Are you doing the environmental study now? What are you doing today? And what are the next steps that causes it to be 3 years? I'm just trying to understand that, that's all.
Yep.
I know it's 3 years, but I'm just trying to understand it.
Yep, so we're in for phase one, we're in the construction phase right now.
Okay.
And so, like I said, we're about halfway done with what we are on there. We pushed up as many roads as we could to be before the paving that we could get in. Obviously, we had to put people who weren't getting served water as our forefront in that project, so we couldn't focus on just the road paving for that one. Phase two, we are about to put out for bid for the design of the rest of those mains.
Okay.
And then construction will be after the design of that.
Okay, so phase two, the design will go out in the fall, going to go out in the spring of next year?
We're going out for bid for getting the design contractor in about a month.
Okay.
And then that'll probably take 5 months to design, 5-6 months, and then we'll go out for bid for construction, and then it should roughly follow right in line with the phase we're currently doing. Our plan is, as soon as this phase is over, we're going to have the next contractor coming in to do the next phase.
Well, obviously, you're hearing from everybody, if you can do anything to pull it up, we want you to pull it up, but understand the next thing is, of course, paving it so it meets the moratorium standards, because definitely we don't want to have people driving on roads with the paving that we have today, which is all those trenches that they backfilled and all that kind of stuff. So you understand the concern. I'm sure you're worried about it too, because you drive on those roads.
Yeah, we're always trying to work together to not touch roads after they're paved. We put a lot of emphasis into that, a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
Time frames, just sometimes when you're repaving the entire town, we're redoing mains all across town. We're redoing laterals everywhere in town. I mean, it's a lot of projects for a small district.
So just so that you understand, it's not, we're not frustrated with you personally, so
Yep.
please don't take it that way, but you can tell that there's a lot of frustration on our board right
Yep.
now. And a lot of it has been, trying to work board to board also to get things moving, which I know that on the ground you guys work really well together, and we appreciate that. But this has been, we've been trying to get this moved along for a long time. And I think our crew has done everything they can to work with you guys so we're not tearing through roads repeatedly. Because, let's be perfectly honest, we can all name roads here that have quote-unquote been redone to standards, and they're horrible to drive on. So again, it's not personal with you, but the frustration is obviously with PID at this point, so.
Yep.
Well, and the frustration is from our citizens. I mean, they're construction fatigue, and they live here, and I don't know if you do or not, but they live here, they live this 24/7. And it's dragging on, and it's getting real old.
And we understand that. We work with, your citizens are the same as our customers. It's the exact same group of people. We understand it. We're trying to focus as best we can. We're pushing on all our contractors to make sure they understand that. Because they do come from out and don't understand that, hey, people have been dealing with construction for 6, almost 7 years now. It's a long time to live in a construction zone. No one enjoys that. We understand that. It is an emphasis of ours to be as best as we can.
Do you folks have the funding for this pipeline replacement?
It is FEMA funded, and
So you have the funding?
yes, well, it's a payback.
You got a settlement.
Yes, we are paying for it
You
to
have
have
money
it
to
done.
front to get this done?
Yes.
Then why can't you expedite it?
Currently, with the contract we have, we're pushing them as fast as they can go and as fast as we can assist. So you got to understand, our crews have to assist with all of this work also.
Okay, well,
And we have contractors in town.
I'm just saying, if you have the money, then, you know, if there's any way to expedite it, this other 10 miles or whatever you're talking about, then I would suggest you do it. Maybe we should go to your board and, as citizens, and ask for that. My other question is, you subcontractors do this mainline replacement?
We have a contractor that does mainline
Yeah,
replacement,
well, I
yes.
just want to let you know that I'm really aware of some of the shoddy work they're doing on their temporary patching. I've discussed it with Mark, and hopefully he's brought it up with you people. That last little section on Clark Road is absolutely atrocious. You're going to have to do better. The contractors are going to have to do better. They can't walk off on a Friday afternoon with a bunch of soft patch in there to where it's just tearing up people's vehicles. They just can't do that.
I fully agree, and we are pushing them to do better on paving.
Thank you for coming. You knew you were gonna come and get beat up, so.
That's part of the job.
But, you
Thanks for
know,
that, Nick. I appreciate you.
No, we do appreciate that, and we are a team, so
Yep.
I wanna make sure we stay that way.
Yep, like I say, I know Mark and our group work really well together, so.
Thank you.
I know on our level, we are doing everything we can.
Mark tells us that regularly, that you guys are working really well with him, so we appreciate that.
I'm going to get fluorescent spray paint with all those pastes I find.
It'll match all the other USA markings, unfortunately. Yeah. Thank you.
Very much. We'll move on to item 1G, the financial update. Jim McCourt from Meter Investments, I believe it'll be online.
Great, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
On the presentation up here on the screen. Did it stay up on the screen for you?
Yeah, we don't wanna see ourselves.
No, not yet.
Let me see.
Now we see it.
There we go.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, yes. Appreciate the invitation to be here to give you an update on the investment portfolio. And before I get into some of the specifics of the portfolio, as always, like to just touch on what's going on in the marketplace and with Fed policy, really what's affecting interest rates and what's driving the investments that we can purchase for the portfolio. And this is a timely meeting because, as I'm sure you're aware, the Fed is scheduled to meet again next week, and it's almost certainly going to be the first time that they adjust policy in over a year, meaning that they will likely start lowering interest rates now, which is going to be a change from where we've been for the last few years. And just to set the stage initially, and some of the main things in the economy that we're always looking at, the Fed's always looking at as far as what's driving interest rates. And we have this acronym that we developed called the Figge model of interest rates, when we're looking at the Fed funds rate, inflation, growth, employment, and yields, the components of the Figge model there. And what we're starting with the Fed funds rate is the Fed setting monetary policy or overnight, very short-term rates to try to influence the economy as much as they can to achieve their dual mandate from Congress. And that's where a couple of the other components come in here with the inflation and the employment side of it. So the Fed has their mandate from Congress to maintain price stability measured by inflation and then to maintain full or maximum employment in the economy. And what's been driving interest rates so high over the last couple of years, as we've talked about with this group a few times, is the idea of trying to restrict policy to try to make borrowing more expensive for consumers and businesses, to try to slow down demand and to try to cool off the price pressure that was really getting out of control with inflation during 2022 really primarily. The byproduct of that now is that they have to consider all of a sudden the other side of their dual mandate, the employment side, we had such a tight labor market for the last few years, despite the high interest rates that we've had. We had sub 4% unemployment, we had really strong month-over-month job growth across the country. We're starting to see some cracks developing in that side of the dual mandate. So we've seen slowing month-to-month growth. We've seen unemployment tick up to 4.3% now, which is above the target they had going into the end of next year. We also saw a major revision to non-farm payrolls a couple weeks ago, where they took really 800,000 jobs away that they thought that the economy had created over the last year. So some cracks developing on that side of the dual mandate that really give the Fed reason to reconsider whether rates need to be as high as they are anymore, or whether they can try to get down to a more neutral level to try to really have more to promote overall economic growth, which is the goal of both of the parts of their dual mandate, to have really steady, consistent economic growth in the country. The last part of that, this FIBI model, is the yields, market yields. So we can really buy along what we call the yield curve, different places that we can buy longer maturities and the rates that we can buy them at for the town's portfolio. And those market yields tend to act a little bit more independently of Fed policy. And so that would be the market more anticipating what is coming as far as inflation and growth and so forth, and ultimately the Fed funds policy. So market yields have already started to price in some of these expected rate cuts that we're expecting to have over the course of the next year and a half or so. But what I'll show you in a second is a lot of the work that we've really been doing over the last couple of years now is going to pay off very well for the town. And you have a lot of these very nice rates locked into the portfolio now. They're going to benefit you even if we do get into a slowing economy that develops into a lower interest rate environment again. The town's portfolio is working to be somewhat insulated against that to really help your investment income over the next couple of years, or several years really. Before I get into that though, a little bit more details on some of these aspects. As far as the Fed funds rate, and this is what I'm showing here is how the market is pricing in the expected path or the decrease in the Fed funds rate over the course of not only the end of this year, but into 2025 as well. And Chairman Jerome Powell of the Federal Reserve really indicated a couple weeks ago that they basically are guaranteed that they're going to cut rates at this next meeting next week. And the market is pricing that in as well, but really 100% probability in the futures market of seeing the first rate cut. The only debate at this point is really whether that's going to be 1/4 of a percentage point or 1/2 percentage point to start out with. But then the market projecting by the end of this year, maybe 1 to 1.25% down from where we are now, which again, the current Fed funds rate is 5.25 to 5.5%. So moving down toward the low 4s by the end of the year. And then by the end of next year, projections are shaping up to be in somewhere around 3%. So getting more towards what they would consider to be a neutral range with monetary policy, where they're not really necessarily being restrictive anymore, but they're also not necessarily being overly accommodative. And if we do see some major slowdown that does eventually develop into a recession, and we've really fended that off pretty well so far, but if it does happen again, the rates could eventually go lower than that neutral rate to get back more into a more accommodative or stimulative policy stance. So there's a lot of variables coming up here that we don't know about going forward, but I think that the more that we've been able to lock a lot of these into the portfolio so far, again, is going to serve you very well going forward. The one thing we put this in here because the one question I've got over the past 4 or 5 months from every client that I've met with has really been what we thought would happen around the election time, and this is appropriate given, certainly the debate going on right now as well. But there's this perception out there, I think, that the Fed doesn't really do much in a presidential election year to try to maintain their stance, their direction to be an apolitical, independent body. And in doing so, people perceive that they kind of get out of the way in presidential election years. So we went back and looked at some data going back to the early 1970s. There were all different types of years: presidential election, midterm election, non-election years. And found out that the Fed actually has moved as much during presidential election years as they have in any other type of year. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean cutting or hiking or favoring one party or another, just general aggregate moves. They have not really shied away from moving. So, and I even did some further digging on my own and just went back and looked at of the last 13 presidential elections, within 2 months prior to the election, they've cut rates 4 different times and raised rates 2 other times. So almost half of the times in the 2 months preceding the presidential election, they have made a move. So I think it kind of shoots a hole in that theory that they get out of the way. And really, it gets back to what they maintain is that if the data, the economic data tells them it's time to hike or time to cut, they won't be afraid to do that. And I think right now the data is telling them that they don't need to be as high with interest rates as they have been. And I think that does lead to them likely cutting here next week, which, will be 6 weeks or so before the presidential election. Looking at just briefly the inflation data, like I mentioned, is the primary driver of why rates got so high to begin with in 2022 and the first half of 2023. Then rates have really been in the current range for the last year, 13, 14 months actually. But what we've been trying to do, what the Fed's objective has been, is to try to slow down the inflation that got so high in mid-2022. So whether you're looking at the CPI, Consumer Price Index, or the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, the PCE, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, both really got way above target in mid-2022 as rates moved higher, try to slow down that demand like their goals would suggest. They did have some success over the last couple of years of driving that down toward their target level of 2% year over year. That success really kind of stalled out in the latter half of 23 and early 24, and I think that's why rates are still as high as they are currently. When I was there at the town in January, I think the expectation at that time was that the Fed would already have cut perhaps a few times by now. That did not happen because we saw that inflation sort of stall out a little bit. But now in just the last couple of months, again, the progress has resumed toward their 2% target. And again, the bigger concern now is the other side of that dual mandate, the employment, and making sure the labor market doesn't get away from them and we fall into the labor market recession by having policy be too tight. So again, I think that all leads to them trying to get rates a little bit more lower and a little bit more accommodative now. Last thing I'll talk about in the market is just looking at market yields, treasury yields. What we have here is a graph of the 2-year treasury in the greenish line and the 5-year treasury in the orange line, going back over the last 20 years or so. So through a couple of different market cycles, pre-great financial crisis in 08-09, and then through pre-COVID, and then when the Fed cut to zero again during the pandemic. But what we see here on the right side, where we've been for the last few years, is that going back at least the last 17 years, the pre-great financial crisis, rates have been as high as they've been in that time period over the last 17, 18 years. This is coming off of down here is where this is when the town received all of the PG&E settlement money. So it received it during the time when interest rates were extremely low, when this portfolio was initially invested. But now we've had the benefit of a couple of years of starting to invest in this much higher, relatively historically high interest rate environment. And what you can see is that over the last couple of months, the market is starting to anticipate this slowing inflation, slowing growth, and ultimately the Fed cutting short-term rates. So longer-term rates have started to move lower as well. But you still have these opportunities to be locking in rates in, close to the 4% range or so, getting them in the portfolio for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and continue to be somewhat insulated against whatever might happen if we do move into a recession or if the Fed cuts rates dramatically, that this portfolio will continue to work to somewhat insulate itself against that. So when I look at what the town's portfolio looks like through the end of August here, I have this updated for our most recent reporting period. So I have it broken down into a few different sections. The securities portfolio is what we are really actively managing on a daily basis. That's what's held in custody at U.S. Bank. The different long-term fixed income securities you own. And we also have what we call your liquidity buckets, which are the California local government investment pools. They have the acronyms of CLASS and LAIF. They're daily liquid, kind of like money market funds. And then lately, Tri-County Bank has also been offering an attractive money market rate to the town as well. So we have a total of about $25 million there, which I would consider that to be daily liquid operating funds. So I stay in very close contact with Amy, and we look at the cash flow to make sure that the town has enough cash on hand to meet expenses for all the various projects you have going on right now, but to not be excessively liquid so that we are maintaining as much as we can in the investment portfolio and continuing to lock in those rates for the longer term while we're still able to. So when you look at the overall weighted average yield of everything in there, up over 2.5% now. Again, I'll allude to back where we started in 2020, when the weighted average yield of the portfolio then was about 0.5%. So it's been on a steady climb over the last couple of years as you're continuing to reinvest and get new securities into this current environment. And because when we're looking at the maturity distribution here, how all these funds are invested from overnight up to 5 years, which is really the maximum maturity that you have under California government code. What we're looking at here is trying to have enough short-term investments to make sure that we are keeping that liquidity available to you, so you have the cash in hand to meet all the expenses you need, but then when we have the availability to be locking in these longer rates. So we have what is now 55, almost 75 million out here in the 3 to 5 year area. And all of these yields are locked in excess of 4%, actually more like 4.35 on a weighted average yield basis. So you have a lot of these very attractive 4% plus yields locked into the portfolio. And the more that we can turn over here in the next couple of months of these low yields that are rolling out, starting to mature, as much as we can continue to reinvest them into this market that we have right now, we'll also continue to benefit the future income for the town as well. When I look at the asset allocation here in the top right corner in the pie chart, it might be a very nice distribution of the eligible asset classes that you are allowed to be invested in. Again, all compliant with California Government Code 53601 and the town's approved investment policy, all very high quality, very liquid fixed income securities. The next page I'll look at. We've started adding this recently to the presentations here to get a look of the cash, or really the historical balances of the town since you received this settlement money in. And so we have this broken down into the different components with the lighter shade on the bottom being the securities portfolio, and then the different liquidity buckets and the other colors on the top. And this is what I really go through with Amy and with Jim on a regular basis, as far as making sure that, we're monitoring the cash flows, understanding your upcoming expenses that you're going to have, and making sure you do have that liquidity on hand. You will note on an overall basis, or overall balance, that in late 22 and 23 we saw some somewhat significant declines of the overall portfolio balance as expenses started to ramp up pretty significantly. And coming in here in late 23, I've continued to give Amy all kinds of credit for really working hard to make sure that the town is getting reimbursed on a timely basis and getting advanced when they're able to make sure that the cash flow is coming back in and you have this continual cash flow to be able to maintain the investment portfolio. So you can see the really good bumps up here in the latter part of 2023. And somewhat, expenses are continuing to occur, projects are continuing to happen, but overall the portfolio balance has still remained relatively pretty solid here over the last couple of years, going back to that 211 million total figure we saw on the previous page of where everything stands currently. The last thing I'll get into is the investment income that's being received from, what we have here is just the securities portion that we are managing. Again, it's in U.S. bank custody. This does not include what is, at this point, still very significant income being generated from those daily liquid investment pools. But just from the securities portfolio, when we look at the last fiscal year that we just wrapped up, the 23-24 fiscal year, with generating over $2 million in cash basis realized investment income from the securities portfolio, actually just about 2.1. When you add in all of the other liquidity as well, the total investment income was just under $3 million. When you move that ahead to the current fiscal year that we're in here, we've got 2 months completed now, but looking at the 10 months remaining with the projections of the bonds in the portfolio, when they're going to pay and how much they're going to pay, we're looking at upwards of almost $3.4 million again just from the securities portfolio this year. And I would expect as we're able to continue to reinvest some upcoming maturities, which will kick off additional income. And then when we get to, also factor in the liquidity component of that as well, it could end up being considerably higher than that projection as well. And then going forward, because we're still continuing to roll out a lot of these very low yields from the front end of the portfolio that were bought several years ago, I do continue to see the trend going forward for at least one more and probably 2 more fiscal years beyond this, where we'll continue to see these nice jumps in overall investment income. The caveat to there is the balance that the portfolio can be maintained at, but assuming it's somewhat stable, we will see those continued jumps in the income, and that's despite the Fed starting to cut rates. This portfolio's income is still going to be increasing as it continues to reap the benefits of really the work that's been being put in over the last couple of years. Now, the liquidity component, the yield on the short-term rates will start to fall, but as much as we can keep maximizing this longer-term portfolio, I think will really benefit you over these next couple of years. And then more importantly, is that eventually when the yield of this starts to decline as well, that it will decline at a much slower pace than the market or where you would have been otherwise in all short-term investments. So we'll have this sort of insulated, again, I'll use that word, and stabilized against whatever might come up in the marketplace going forward. So I think we're really getting to a much nicer spot here with the portfolio. And again, I'll commend Amy with all the hard work she's been putting in to be able to maintain those somewhat stabilized cash flows with all the consistent reimbursements and advances the town can be receiving as well. So with that, I will take this off the screen and take any questions, comments, or thoughts from anybody.
Questions or comments from council?
I just have a question. Our current weighted yield is 2.56. What do you anticipate for the 2025 year? What do you think that yield's going to go up, and about how much?
Well, a lot of the bonds rolling out of the portfolio, a lot of those are still coming out at sub 1% and going back in at 3.5%, 4% or so. So we're going to continue to pick up 200 or 300 basis points in every trade, which I think will continue to increase that overall weighted average yield pretty significantly over the next year or so. The thing that's going to be the unknown to that is how fast the Fed cuts rates. Because you have that 25 or 30 million that we're keeping in cash and liquidity, which right now, those are 5% plus. And so it depends on the pace that comes down at. If the Fed cuts very aggressively, that will throw a much bigger weight to the negative side in there. But I do think that we're still going to continue to see some nice trends up over 3% for sure. And hopefully we can be a little bit higher than that and then have that locked in for a little while.
Nice, thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
No, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, I'd like to know, I'd like to think I know what you're talking about most of the time, but that would be a lie. But you did a very good job at explaining it, and those are exciting numbers to see. I mean, that's great.
I appreciate it.
So
Thank you very much. We're glad to be partnering with you.
All right, great, thank you for that, appreciate that.
All right, talk to you all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We'll now move on to item 1H, the campfire recovery updates. There are written reports that are included in the packet. There's 4 of them. Are there any questions from the council on any of those 4 recovery updates?
Colette, just my general question of where are we with the category 4 tree reimbursement?
No update. We are still waiting to hear on the legal process that we are pursuing. So we are still waiting for a decision.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to item 2, the consent calendar. There's one roll call vote to be taken for all items. Consent items are considered to be routine business that doesn't call for a discussion. I am going to pull item 2C, which is the resolution of the town council on the implementation plan. We'll discuss that after we've concluded this part of the consent calendar. So the question is for items 2A, B, 2D, and 2E.
I move approval.
Okay, heard it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Motion by Bowen, seconded by Crowder. Councilmember Bowen.
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder.
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
Mayor Lasson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll move on to item 3, which are items removed for the consent calendar. So that particular item will be item 2C that's on there. It's adopt resolution number 2024-60, a resolution of the town council of the town of Paradise adopting an implementation plan related to the ordinance number 637, nuisance abatement procedure. Tony, I believe you'll be speaking to that.
Some of us don't have whatever you read,
Hello.
so if you can put it up there, it will help. We don't have, electronically, I don't have an agenda packet, so I don't have the packet.
Oh, you don't? I can give you a copy of,
Some do, but some. Apparently there's a glitch with the computer system here, so none of our town providers have it. And I need to print it out.
I think you got it in your packet here, don't you?
Yeah, there's 2 additions.
Yeah, in your packet.
Not all of it. This one thing. Talking about
does everyone else have,
Steve, do you want to look at mine? What do you want to look at mine?
I got a copy.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
If you don't mind, can you?
We're good.
okay, we pulled the consent item, and you have any questions?
Why was it pulled off? Who pulled it off?
I did, at request. There were some questions about the notification of individuals. It's important that we would know that every step of the process, that the individual property that we're about ready to abate has been notified. Say if there was a fine on it, they got notified that when we're ready to abate, they got that 10-day notice. The real question is, I know you guys are using that new process, that skip trace process, or whatever the term is. I need to know, and I think other loan accounts might want to know, that when you bring a piece of property to us, you're going to confirm to us that they had an opportunity to abate it. They were told about it, they knew about it, to the best of your ability, and at that point where we're actually going to abate and give them that 10 days to clean it, that you did all the due diligence to make sure that they were notified and that you cleaned it themselves. Is that something that's part of your process?
It's part of the code enforcement process, the notification and the citations. And we can certainly put it into the implementation plan. But, when we do notifications, we notify a violation, we notify it in any kind of mail return. We do a search for, through county records. We have people finding software that we use as well. We do that prior to bringing it into the implementation plan. Before we bring it up before council, we cite notice of violation, and then we have 3 opportunities to also cite, because we give them 3 citations, right? So each time, we're looking and seeing if the mail's getting verified. If it bounces back to us, then we start searching for the property owner's name. And through county records, we use the county database, we use the tax assessor, making sure that, current addresses match up, as well as we do then the people finding search. I like to say, we coined the phrase skip trace. We don't do an official skip trace. We're not paralegals or attorneys, but we do use skip tracing software, and we also use a couple other softwares as well that we have found gives us better information. We locate telephone numbers, and we send out text messages for people as best as we can, and we have gotten some, we found some people and notified them. People have found addresses that come from previous addresses that they stayed at, and they're also getting our mails. Our letters are, going out in a new format with a, gold envelope, stamped urgent, so people, will kind of open them. So we do all that before the implementation comes about. Now, we can certainly add that verbiage in. I think we can come up with something. Mark?
So I think you have some additional communications language edit here, correct?
Yes, we're
Okay.
pulling it up for you now. So where we could edit this and would add the communication language would be in the red. See, the first one, the implementation plan, number 1, that's how it's currently written, but we could add the red. So prior to this, staff will address issues which are mailed by consulting the county ownership records, utility providers. I forgot, we also reach out to PID and NRWS, that we deal with a lot of vacant properties, so they don't have garbage service, but we use our utility providers to see if they, have contact information, because we know that keeping meters on properties, and PID left, but that adds value to the property, right? So if they keep their meters on property, obviously they're paying a standby charge, and so we search, through PID as well. So we do make, every attempt. Is it perfect? I wouldn't say we're perfect at it, right? But we do try to attempt to make contact with people. People, some are just unwilling, right? And as we work down, currently, I think I had a report, this is where we're at 88% compliance. As of today, we're 89.5%. So we are slowly creeping up to just the more recalcitrant property owners that are just unwilling to comply. Right.
Yeah, I appreciate the language that you put in here. I think you've covered it really well.
Okay.
So I would definitely be in favor of adding just those sentences in there. I think that helps clarify it for residents. And they can see our work, so to speak. They can see the due process.
Yes. So, yeah, like I say, this is just done before, and we'll certainly do it if we get any kind of return mail. We'll continue to do that, right?
Just out of curiosity, the people that you have now contacted, what did they say? Like, when you asked them, why have you not taken care of your lot? Like, what?
It's a variety of, I live out of town, I'm in a different state, I live in Chico and it's too far, I can't afford it.
We don't own the property anymore. So we had someone who said, I don't own that property anymore, why do you keep sending me this stuff? I said, because you own the property. No, I got my settlement from the insurance company, I don't own the property anymore.
Too.
And they thought they didn't own it. Yeah. Are any of these like where the bank has repossessed the property?
We've dealt with a couple banks
So that does-
on property. Oh, yeah, sure.
So I'm curious about, when you send out the second, or let's say, when you send out the third citation, are they told, what are they told about this new process?
What are they told about the new process? Well, we can certainly start informing them about this and loop them into, like the next correspondence with.
Would it make
people-
sense, so like, when you send out a second citation to a property, say, by the way, if you don't respond, absolutely on the third one, wherever the trigger point is, when they get that citation, they should know, here's the next step.
I think we will start that once we have the implementation plan,
Yeah.
vetted out and it's certainly approved, right? It's not approved, right? So right now we have it codified, but, the implementation plan is before you now. And we can certainly then inform people. Well, that's at the, council's discretion, right?
Are there any other questions for Tony on this? Do I hear a motion?
I do have a question, okay. I do have a question after we vote on this. I wanted to ask you something.
I do have one card on this
Okay,
item.
let's go to one card.
Mimi Brown?
Hi. Mimi Brown. So my question about, I think the weed abatement is wonderful, I really do. I just wonder if the government has to follow the same rules as citizens do. And let me say why. Okay, next to my property is a creek with about weeds this high, and which would be a great runway for a fire. Okay, and I've talked to different agencies that say they clean up creeks, and they like to connect donations up here at events, and they don't clean up Paradise Creeks, they clean up Chico Creeks. So I told them they shouldn't be collecting donations up here. So then I talked to Fish and Game. Fish and Game says, no, don't touch the creeks, that's our creeks, right? Right? So but he takes care of all of Northern California, he doesn't have the staff to clean it up. So who does that fall on? It needs to be cleaned up, just like the citizens, right? Tony? Does Fish and Game have to follow up on that weed abatement for our creeks?
Is it on your property?
It's next to my property,
Not on your property.
not on my property, no, not my responsibility.
Send Tony out to the state.
Please? I mean, seriously, the fire could come right through the creek, no problem,
What we.
this high.
How about our
I
fire chief?
understand, Diane,
How about Fire Chief Anderson, this one? Could you answer us?
Garrett, please.
No, all dried up, weeds.
So what's the specific question? Who's going to clean up the waterway?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, I don't work for Fish and Game, so a lot of times we do
Thank goodness.
realize that, that we don't work for Fish and Game. A lot of times they don't like, and I won't partially speak on behalf of Fish and Game, I know that when you put debris into the water or in the waterways, that is all frowned upon. So I don't have a specific Fish and Game will do this or Fish and Game will do that, but it may validate a phone call to Fish and Game to ask them about the waterway, if that's who owns that waterway, to see if there's a process to get that cleaned up.
I doubt they own the waterway, it's probably the property owner that owns that, but they have jurisdiction over that waterway. When you try to bore underneath these creeks, as they're trying to do, it takes them forever to get the jurisdictions to okay them to bore and put electricity underneath the creeks. It's unbelievable what you gotta go through, so.
Correct.
You can call Fish and Game and you can find out.
But-
Yeah, they're
Chief
tough.
and council.
Okay, but if we have an ordinance, if we have rules, and if Fish and Game, the state of California owns that waterway, then we give them a citation. We've given citations to ourselves when we had property, town-owned property that was in violation.
Council, I'd love
So, I
to be
mean,
able to chime in on behalf of the Public Works Department and just speak to our own Paradise Municipal Code to complicate it a little bit further, is the town has adopted a stormwater management ordinance that says, creeks and streams and stormwater that goes through private property really do need to be protected and not have a lot of disturbance activities like cutting weeds, killing vegetation in the drainages for a variety of reasons, but mostly to protect for slope stabilization, erosion and runoff, any other potential issues that could be created by the removal of certain weeds near these creeks. The language that the council adopted, I believe, was 2013, was part of our required permit through the state. And I don't know the specifics of the resident's property, but I don't imagine creeks are owned in fee by the state or Fish and Game. It is just a permitting body that does provide guidance for local implementation, but is likely private property that has town code, state code that says do not disturb the certain area within the creek body.
Then this makes absolutely no sense, once again, okay? I mean, we're trying to protect our citizens in our town from burning down again. So we're gonna give everybody citations or take away their land if they don't clean up their property. Oh, but if there's a dry creek bed going through it, nobody can touch it? That's absurd.
I didn't say a dry creek, Brad.
Can we bring this up later? Can we move this along and then maybe bring this up later and talk about it as a separate situation?
That makes a whole lot of sense, because we can't answer it here, we need to get more data on that and find out, but it's a valid question. Yeah. All right. You want to speak? Please come forward.
I think about 3 years ago, Rose might know better, Congressman LaMaffa and Gallagher's office put together a meeting where we had Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife, everybody involved. Remember that, Rose? And basically, what they told us is kind of, just don't get stupid. They want to keep a buffer if there's berries or that there to stop erosion. But in speaking with them, and they had regional directors there from both the feds and the state, and they were on Zoom, and basically, as long as we didn't get stupid in cleaning it up, they were happy with it. And I deal with the local Fish and Game all the time, and they have been pretty responsive. And I think that what they ask us to do is realistic.
Thank you. We'll put this as a future agenda item to look into. We don't have the answer for you today, sorry.
Okay.
You can see it's a complicated issue because of the different agencies that may have oversight of it. So we'll put it on there so we can get the right answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is anybody else wish to speak on this topic?
I move approval with this Exhibit A added in.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and second.
Motion by Bullen, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bullen?
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
And Mayor Lassan?
Aye.
Motion
So my
passes.
question real quick is, it talks about the fire chief or representative. You don't have time, obviously. So, I mean, that's a lot of work. There's got to be someone else that's going to be doing that.
So I think that having the fire prevention shop, a majority of the time, handling all the business on behalf of the fire chief is totally appropriate. There may be cases where something needs a little more attention to it, or a little more thought, or a little more perspective on it from the fire side. That's where I have no problem, or one of my staff, to go out and to look on site, different fuel beds, topography, location in the town. I mean, there's a lot of variables that go out to play, so if there's a question that comes up like that, then
So
absolutely.
you guys talk, you authorize those people, everything's, okay.
You bet.
We have these codes now, we can do it for you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, move on to public hearings. Let's see.
Actually, we have public communication.
Once again?
Public communication.
Public communication?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm sorry, read the wrong one. Yeah. We have anything for public
We
communication?
have a card by Carrie Max.
Good evening. Carrie Max. You guys have started on my road today. Thank you very much. And you're going really quick and it's awesome. So there's been an issue with our road with me, my next door neighbor, and two neighbors down. Through the winters, the rain, when it rains, the road has been tilted towards us and the water comes into our places and through our driveways and everything. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be drainage on the sides, and I'm wondering who to talk to, just because it started today, and I was like, oh, there's a meeting tonight, so I'm just wondering who to talk to, or if it's going to be addressed, or if that's something that can be addressed. Hi. And so later or now, or?
Mark is the Storm Drain Master Plan master of that.
That's what I thought. We'll talk later, or?
I'd be glad to follow up with you after the meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
For the road.
I have one other card by Mimi Brown.
Okay, and this is on the same topic, but I have followed up on it. So, and this is on the same question, if the government has to follow the same rules that the citizens do. Okay, so the road that goes past my house, like I said, there's a creek right next to it, and the water flows down the hill into my driveway and makes a big gully every time it rains. Okay, so when I got the notice that my road was going to be repaved, yay, I called up and said, can you just make a swale or a gully like that goes into the creek right next to my property instead of into my driveway? And I was told, no, we don't do that. You have to hire an engineer and then have plans drawn up and approved by the town and get a permit, and then you have to hire a contractor to put that gully in or swale. The thing is, I don't own the roads, okay? The town owns the roads. Why do I have to pay for that? Any other, City of Chico, I'm sure they pay for their own gully, their own, gullies or swales on their roads. Why do I have to pay for that? Why can't the road be designed so it goes into the creek or not in my driveway, or has a gully or swale?
So you can get with Mark afterwards also?
Yeah, that would be our answer. Talk with Mark afterwards.
Yeah, I'd be glad to talk with you after the meeting.
Okay.
Address any site-specific concerns.
Thank you, Mark.
I can't speak in general, though. I can't speak in general, though, just for an answer to get us going. The road funding, again, is Campfire Recovery Road funding to repair road damages. This is not funding to fix every pre-existing problem that existed prior to the town going through the fire, let alone being incorporated by the county. And so, obviously, there are infrastructure needs broad. Our storm drain master plan is evidence of that. 42 different projects, $20 million unfunded at this point. So these little things, we're trying to do the best we can with the road funds, but I'd be glad to talk with our resident here and to follow up and see if there are any little things that can be done within the bounds we're working with these federal dollars that do not allow us to upgrade adjacent facilities.
Is it a private road or public road?
I don't know where she lives.
On Pine View, it's a town road. Pine View, it's town paradise.
And as you build a house, it is responsibility of the homeowner or the builder to tie into the road. And there is a permit you have to get, you have to follow instructions. So, we do have responsibility for that tie-in and stuff. And so there's a lot of gray areas and all that, so.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Mark will help you out.
Yep.
If you can, remember, federal dollars bring federal constraints on what we can do with federal oversight, so that's what he'll explain to you.
Remember, federal dollars are your dollars.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to item 5A, the conduct a duly notice and published public hearing, receive comment on the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, for the Community Development Block Grant Program, and to authorize the town manager to submit the CAPER to the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Hi, I'm Sarah, we've met. I'm with our housing department. As you know, Town of Paradise has a CDBG entitlement. Our program year ends June 30th, and we report our accomplishments every fall. This report is called the CAPER. So a draft was made available last month to the public, and so we are here to conduct that public hearing to incorporate any public comment to this report. We attach it to the report, and then we submit it to HUD with your approval. You call for a public hearing.
Go ahead.
No questions?
Are there any questions from the council on this report that's in the packet?
Cards?
Any cards on it?
I have no cards.
Any comments from our lawyer?
This does actually require that you open the public hearing,
Yeah.
to ask if any members of the public want to make comment, and
Okay.
then when they don't, then you close the public.
Okay. Consider it open to the public at this point. If anybody in the public wishes to, is there any cards on this subject?
I have no cards on this item.
Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this subject?
What is the subject?
The CAPER, the
So-
Community Block Grant, Development Block Grant.
The subject is, we have, the Town of Paradise has a grant, we get an allotment every year from the Housing and Urban Development. We have a 5-year plan that lines out exactly how we're supposed to spend that money every year. Every year, we spend money according to that plan, and then we report on the accomplishments at the end of the year. This year, we are reporting on our accomplishments. We funded some public services. We had another chunk of it was supposed to go to support another grant program. That program got suspended by HUD, so we haven't been able to spend any of that money, so it is still available, unspent. Hopefully, we will spend it next year.
The entire detail of that particular plan starts on page 51 of the docket that was put up on the website. So if you want to read through that prior to a meeting like this, it'll give you a better idea. If you want to know more about it afterwards, you can go look at it online. It's there for you in detail.
And if it feels like you're missing anything, like why do we have to do a public hearing for a very small grant? We're the smallest entitlement, I think, in the country, for sure in the state, but we treat this grant like we would as if any other grant, as if it were $10 million. So other cities are doing the same process, but they're reporting on millions and millions of dollars worth of accomplishments, and we're just not.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll close the public hearing.
I'll move approval.
Second?
Motion by Bolin, seconded by Tryon. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Lasson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
And we'll now move on to item 6, council consideration. The first item is item 6A.
Wait, before we move
And I
on.
believe,
Sorry, do we need to, is there any motion to authorize the town manager to submit the CAPER to HUD?
That was part of the motion.
It was, perfect.
Part of the
Thank
whole.
you.
Thank you.
It's in the fine print.
Thank you. I believe the
Yeah, I'm gonna
councilman
have to,
have to excuse himself.
Excuse myself on this one.
Okay, take a break. Okay, item 6A is to hear an informational update on the Paradise Sewer Project, which summarizes work completed by Progressive Design Build Team and forecasts the next steps in the project development.
Good evening, Mayor Lassonde and the rest of the Paradise Town Council. I'm Colin Nelson, I'm the project manager for the Paradise Sewer Project. I have a few folks here with me tonight to kind of support with the update. I want to do some introductions real quick. We have Allison McReynolds in the back. She's with HGR, one of the owner's advisors. Randy Buckman with Mountain Cascade. He's the project manager for the PDB team. And Beverly Hahn, who's with Corolla Engineers. She's been heading up the engineering portion of this. And then, of course, you guys know Guy Voss, who's hanging out on the screen, joining us remotely from parts unknown. So we do have a brief slideshow here tonight to kind of talk about what progress has been made over the past few months, basically since March when we brought the Progressive Design Build team on to start the preliminary engineering phase of this project. We're going to go over what we have accomplished so far and what the next major milestones and some of the decisions we're going to have to make in the upcoming months.
Oh, hold on. I can do it. There we go.
All right, here is our kind of high-level diagrammatic schedule of where we are right now in the overall phase. As you can see in the bottom left, we are at the tail end of Phase 1A, which is the basis of design. During this portion of the project, we have looked at the design of the project that was contained within the original technical documents as it was approved through the programmatic EIR, and we have begun the preliminary engineering phase. The culmination of this will be the production of a basis of design report, which is due from the PDB team in mid-October in the draft form. And so once we get that draft from them, there's going to be a pretty extensive review period. HGR is going to help us go through a lot of that. The town's going to do a bunch of review. That will become a finalized document. We'll come back to the council and present that along with the data that we found during the preliminary engineering of the project. Yeah, so that's where we sit right now. Yep.
Are you on track for October?
We are on track for October. Right now, I mean, we've been tracking to the schedule, if not ahead of schedule, and we've been below budget. So there's a lot of really good indicators that have been going on, and there's, you know, a lot of credit due to the team as this huge, massive project moves forward in pretty good sync at this point in time. So yeah, next slide, Mark, if you don't mind. So some of the key things that we've accomplished over the last year, we've really got ahead of the environmental permitting for this project. We've received the biological opinion from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Basically, we produced a huge report identifying the impacts, the ecological impacts to species within the project footprint. We identified mitigation measures to mitigate for negative impacts. And then we've designed avoidance measures to make sure that we avoid, and we submit that report to U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They review it. They took them about 4 months to go through all of it. They concurred with all of our findings that were in there. We've also received a letter of concurrence from the National Marine Fisheries Service, confirming that basically the design of the project is not going to have any impacts on the fish population. We do have to cross 3 major creeks in Chico, so there's some design considerations that they've reviewed through that. Once again, mitigation measures and timing of projects and designs of crossings, and they have concurred that we're not going to have any negative impacts with mainly the salmon population in Butte Creek. CDFW, we're working through with them right now to finalize the incidental take permit. We're having to work through some things with the bees and them because they're a newly listed species, and our pipeline alignment currently affects our grassland area along the export pipeline along Skyway. So there's still some things to work out with them as far as what that permit is going to look like for potential impacts to bee habitat within the footprint of the project. Most of these other permits that you see listed on here are more technical permits. They have to do with the designs of the creek crossings and the stream bed alteration. We're in the process of finalizing our 408 permit with the Army Corps of Engineers. That's going to be an extensive review period. We have to get 2 of those, one for our geotechnical investigation near the creeks, So those have to be permitted separately. Once we get that information, we'll be able to design our horizontal directional bores underneath the creek. That information goes back for another 408 permit review with the Army Corps of Engineers for the full project. So a lot of work to be done with them, a lot of timelines that have kind of been pushed around by the Army Corps. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. So getting into some of the work that's been done, one of the key components of the basis of design report that we will be bringing back to council is the hydraulic model that we've built for the project. There's some examples here of hydraulic models for some other agencies. There's some information there about Chico on the left-hand side. This basically maps out the projected wastewater flows based on lot usage. So commercial properties versus residential properties, wet weather season versus dry weather season. We're able to kind of project those flows. That gives us information about pipeline sizing, gives us information about when our flows are going to hit the treatment plant in Chico, and it gives us information about what the fluctuation in the system should be based on the time of the year. There's a lot of information. We're using the top-of-the-line modeling software to come up with this. It creates all sorts of different information. You can see some of the hydraulics based on the location of the transition structure there. There's a chart on the bottom that speaks to the elevations and the pressures and the flow rates and how multiple hookups create increased flows and projecting population growth against project design, and there's a lot of information that's contained in there. So that'll be one of the components that's contained in the basis of design report as well. One of the other things we've been really studying a lot and had a lot of really in-depth conversations about is what the long-term O&M plan is going to look like for the project. You know, building this is one thing, but then taking care of it and running it is a completely different story. We don't currently have a sewer district in the town of Paradise, so we aren't currently equipped to run and manage something like that, and we're going to have to create an additional department division. And so we've looked at a bunch of different options to create something that's functional for the town and you know, keeps our interests locked in. So some of the options we've looked at, right, is the town owns and operates the system. And so we wouldn't have a separate district like PID. We would be owned and operated internally. We would beef up staff. We would have people that dealt with rates and maintenance and emergency response and those types of things. One of the other options we've looked at is third-party operation and maintenance. That can be done a couple different ways. Sometimes it's partnering with another entity, like Chico, for example. It can also be done by partnering through a private group. There's organizations out there that own wastewater treatment plants and as a private entity, and they own and operate those as well. We are studying a hybrid combination of partnering maybe with another group and then also having some of our own maintenance staff. Maybe we own the equipment. There's a bunch of things to still drill into on this. And then one of the other things that we're kind of leaning towards is this phased approach where, because Carollo and Mountain Cascade they have such a deep bench, they have the assets to be able to help us manage this and run this up front for the first couple of years as we train up staff and as we procure the certified operators that are necessary in order to make it work. So basis of design report, we'll have a bunch of those options and we'll have recommendations from staff on how to handle that. Talking about some additional engineering, there's some diagrams here that we've looked at some different options for the export pipeline that would travel from the town limits to the wastewater treatment plant in Chico. And we'll just talk through some of these real quick. So on the left we see, so let me back up a little bit. One of the big issues behind the engineering here is how we deal with the low flow rates up front, because the system's going to go in. We're not immediately going to have 1,500 connections on day one, right? We're going to have low flows. It creates a major maintenance problem. It's probably going to be one of the biggest maintenance issues for this system overall, is how we deal with that first initial hookups and how we keep that working while we get the capacity up. So the example here on the left side shows a stacked pipe orientation with a smaller pipe on the bottom and a larger pipe on the top. Mind you, this would be in the export pipeline, right? Not in town. And the idea would be that the bottom pipe is utilized. We transfer as flows hit, close to 50-60%. We transfer to both pipes, and it increases the overall capacity. Each one of these options that you're going to see here has pros and cons. The second one on the right has the same stacked pipe configuration, but they're offset. In this orientation here, it allows for better access for maintenance for the bottom line. If you have some sort of maintenance or emergency that you have to deal with, you don't have a line that's stacked directly above it. The other three that you see to the right there are some little more customized pipe designs. You can see they're tapered at the bottom. This creates a situation where during your low flow period, you have higher velocities at the lower portion of the pipe, and then as the levels raise, the velocities slow down, and there's a couple different pipe options there. There's some issues with this around cost. So it's a proprietary design. You can't just grab extra parts from any known manufacturer, right? So that's some options there around pipeline configuration. One of the other things that we've really kind of been talking about, and one of the changes that we're going to make to the project is the location of the transition structure. So initially, we located the transition structure there for the center mark. It's kind of about where Rocky Bluffs is. We've identified a spot farther up that's going to make a little bit more sense from a hydraulic standpoint, and it's also going to allow us to put in a subsurface overflow chamber, which will give us about 8 hours of emergency time if something happens to the pipeline. Or the plant. Yes, the plant. Or if you have some sort of emergency that happens downstream from us, we're going to have some time to deal with it before it becomes, an environmental crisis. There's a little diagram there on the side of what the transition structure looks like. The importance of this transition structure is where the flow goes from a gravity force main to it's gravity fed with a little bit of air in the pipe. It goes through the transition structure and it becomes a gravity force main from there to the wastewater treatment plant.
What is gravity force main? What does that mean?
It means that, so you know how if you have a pump and you're pumping through something, it's going to completely fill the pipe? Fills up the pipe all the way.
So that's what gravity is?
Gravity, yeah, but we're doing it with gravity instead of with a pump. Next one. So we've studied a few different alignment alternatives within the town of Paradise. This is one of the most important ones that we have come across, and we'll talk through this a little bit tonight, but the initial design, as it was proposed, originally had a major trunk line running along Pearson, and you can see the cross-section there of Pearson with the elevations. Due to the topography along Pearson, it would require 3 pump stations for us to move wastewater along Pearson and connect it to Skyway, and that we have discovered that by rerouting and adding an extra main along Bushman that comes down Recreation Drive, we'll be able to eliminate 2 of those pump stations and add a bunch of users to the system without reducing any of the hookups along Pearson. And essentially what we would do is instead of having a trunk main that runs the entire length of Pearson, it would stop on both sides of the big hill. And one side would drain back to Clark, the other side would drain back to Skyway, and then
go over to Bushman and down.
Go over to Bushman and down. Yep. We'd also be able to add the rec center facilities, that are on Pearson. The aquatic park, yeah, on Recreation Drive. There's a couple other, the next slide here shows one of the other alternatives that we have looked at. So this is Lower Clark Road. This is focused on Lower Clark Road. The initial design had a gravity system that flowed all the way down just about to the airport, and then a pump station that pumped all the way back up to Clark. We've looked at eliminating the lower portion of that trunk main and terminating the main line in the vicinity of American Way and the Easy Street, the industrial facility. Once again, the primary function of the sewer system is to serve our commercial and industrial parcels, so we want to make sure that we keep that component there. But if we eliminate that lower section and we put a single pump station at American Way, we'll be able to just do one pipe, and there'll be a mini collection system that serves the industrial portions, and then it pumps it in one line back up to Clark, Clark to Pearson, as opposed to having a gravity line that runs all the way down and then a force main that runs all the way back up. So Skyway alignment, as we talk about kind of shifting designs a little bit, one of the biggest challenges of this project is the environmental impacts, and believe it or not, there's not as many in the town of Paradise as there is along the export pipeline section of Skyway. It's been it's been a lot of work to work through this, but we've come up with some alternatives here, and we've reviewed them, from an engineering side, we've reviewed them with the contractor from a constructability side, and we've reviewed these extensively with the environmental team to pick up some alignments that get us as far away from the vernal pools that are on the southeast side of Skyway, and also out of the roadway to avoid as much road reconstruction in that county-owned section of Skyway. We haven't finalized our selection here, but there's one that we're leaning towards, and we'll present that with the basis of design report. But this has been, the team's worked really hard on this and trying to figure out the best way to kind of weave this downhill, down Skyway, without causing a bunch of problems. Of course, PG&E took the prime spot, right, with that trench that came up Skyway, and we, they beat us to it, but that was the place to go. But right, if we could put it on top, right, yeah.
Turn into meadow foam?
Yeah, there's a little bit there. There's a little bit there. But once again, avoidance, we've got our environmental team has done a lot of surveying on that, and there's a lot of avoidance procedures and things in place to make sure that we don't have issues with the environmental permitting agencies. So, yeah, I know about the phone. Kind of want to walk through an updated schedule. I know Mark's shared this in previous meetings. Once again, basis of design report is on track for mid-October. It's probably going to be December before we bring that to the council. There's going to be an extensive review period there and a little bit of back and forth with the team. But that's on track to be delivered. Some of the other updates, we'll be starting starting the year next year, jumping right back into design. Our initial contract, our Phase 1A contract with the PDB team, with Mountain Cascade and Carollo, will be up when the basis of design report is produced. So there'll be a new contract that's still within the original allocation to finish up the rest of the final design for the project. So we'll be launching into that starting first quarter of next year. Right of way, we're on schedule to start the right-of-way phase in Q2 2026. Environmental permitting is already underway and is going to continue well into 2027. That's basically the Army Corps of Engineers. That's the long straw there. GMP negotiations are slated to be completed in Q4 2026, and that would, of course, roll us right into construction in Q1 of 2027 if everything goes well. You can go to the next one. Questions? I'm sure there's a bunch. We'd like to kind of keep it to high-level questions tonight. If anybody wants to get super technical, they can make some time to meet with Mark and I and the engineering team. So.
Questions from the council?
One of the things, this is such a, you guys, great job, actually. Really appreciate all that you're doing, massive project. When this comes back to us in November, December, wherever, I'm going to suggest that if it is that complex, and because it is, that we either have a special meeting to deal with this one item. I don't want to get into 11 o'clock at night. So I'm going to suggest that, because this is a really important thing for our community.
Agreed.
And we need to fully understand it.
Yep.
And we need to, so I
think we should talk, yeah.
That's my high level.
Yeah, no, I think that brings up a valid point, which is that this is a very key portion of the project, and the decisions that have to get made at this point in time are going to be more than what we want to try to discuss. At some point, it will, it'll be public-facing documents, so we'll have to come and discuss the decisions that are made for sure, but I think that an in-depth review of that, we'll figure out how to coordinate that in the best way.
Are you anticipating any issues with the permitting process? I mean, especially since the...
Why do you ask?
Because it's the Army Corps of Engineers,
Right,
that's why I
right.
ask. Especially since the water board sort of put their thumb on this project, and this
Yeah.
was their preferred project. It seems like there shouldn't be any issues with it, but...
Right. So we've heard a few different things. We have some contacts at the water board, and they have committed to kind of making sure that things continue to move along. I don't anticipate any major problems with the Army Corps of Engineers, but there is a review process for the projects that they have to meet. I don't anticipate any problems with them, and the main reason is that we have designed this in such a way to stay out of the levee prisms, and that's our initial intent, and that's what we have some additional geotech that needs to happen next to the creeks, but, so the creeks are where the Army Corps steps in, right? And making sure that we design those horizontal directional crossings that are subsurface in such a way that it stays out of their infrastructure and stays far enough away from the banks is what will make it so that we don't have any issues with them. So the issues with the Corps end up being engineering issues, it's design things, and less of kind of the environmental component, which can be speculative or open to interpretation.
And we'll think we'll have enough room in the right of way to be able to meet their minimum
Yeah.
clearances?
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
Yep, I don't anticipate any, I mean, we've made some incredible progress on the environmental permitting front, and I really, like, in the way that this project is laid out and the thought that's put into the way, the technical memorandums that were put together initially by HDR, it's presented in such a way, and it gives us the ability to present this to the permitting agencies in a way that's really easy for them to say yes to.
Okay, thank you.
And the Water Quality Board, I mean, that agency is kind of behind this. This is their, so we've kind of got.
We kind of have
They're a partner on this. They're going to help us get through.
I mean, all of the agencies view themselves as partners with the town on this project, and it's been actually kind of interesting to see that roll out, just that general attitude of them wanting to consider themselves partners. It isn't, we're not having to go pitch that concept to them. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the council? Any cards?
I have no cards on this item.
Anybody from the public want to speak on this question?
So I'm confused, because I heard rumor, okay, and you guys can, that the funding for the building of the sewers fell through. Is that true? Do we have the funding in place?
No, there's no funding in place. There's never been funding in place.
Oh, okay.
Okay, the funding we've had so far is to get us to where we are now. The actual construction funding is still funding we're actively looking for, working for. We've been assured by the Water Board and other people that they would help us procure that funding, which would help us leverage that for other kinds of funding. But when the state went broke last year or this year, it's kind of just delayed things. So that's kind of what the truth is.
Okay, delayed.
I clarified a little more, saying we're currently operating under a grant, a design grant, right? So that the initial, the design of the project is covered by a grant through HUD that covers the initial design.
Okay. Design, not for building. Okay.
All right. No vote required on this one. We'll move on to item 6B, which is adopt resolution 2024-63, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Paradise approving the plans and specifications for the Fleet Shop renovation project and authorizing advertisement for bids on the project. Who's going to speak to that?
I will. Thank you, Mayor Lassat. Good evening, council. The item before you, as Mayor just noted, is for approval of the plans and specs for our first Fleet Shop renovation project, maybe in history. The original Fleet Shop was constructed as a part of Station 81 in 1965 and had an additional bay constructed in 2018 to allow for heavy equipment and maintenance of larger fire apparatus. But the existing Fleet Shop has had several safety and maintenance deficiencies that we've been looking to address for quite some time. During the development of the 23-24 fiscal year capital and operating budget, the Town of Paradise Fleet Shop was identified in need of renovation to address the operational needs for staff while improving deferred maintenance and safety conditions for fleet activities. The 23-24 Measure V budget included several allocations for an engine exhaust evacuation system at the facility, as well as roof repairs and lighting and cooling improvements for a total of about $153,000. Due to heavy workload constraints, the project did not reach full design in the 23-24 budget, and however, we were forecasting based on what we saw with the animal shelter expansion project that the potential for these improvements could exceed the budget allotted. So in the 24-5 budget, we added an additional $100,000 in Measure V funds to supplement the original project cost. Again, following the success of the work performed by Nichols, Melberg, and Rosetto, architects and engineers, for the animal shelter expansion project, we asked them to continue their work with us in packaging the various improvements scoped for the Fleet Shop together. and submitting design plans. Those plans have been submitted to the building department for review and approval at this time. A brief overview of the final project plan set is shown here on the agenda item, but again is to install that engine exhaust evacuation system. So if our staff is working on heavy engines of any size or motor vehicles that need to be turned on, and we have inclement weather or just general ventilation issues, that this system would be able to attach to those vehicles and evacuate the exhaust before reaching the employees working on the vehicle. So it's a key safety feature. The project also includes a new roof, gutters, and insulation. The existing structure had more deficiencies than originally anticipated, so a new roof is required. New LED lighting systems and electrical upgrades are required as well as a new cooling system. Staff is requesting council approve the final plans and specs to authorize the advertisements for bids. And if approved, we anticipate the following schedule for advertising this month through October and bid opening in late October, early November. Awarding a council construction contract at the November meeting with construction winter, spring 2025. As far as the financial impact, we've received a formal engineer's estimate for the project of $398,000. We are proposing the funding to come from the Measure V funds as stated prior, the $158,000 from 23-4, $100,000 from 24-25, and the project gap funding for $142,000 would be from the Town of Paradise Paradise Recovery and Operations Projects Fund. This is the same fund that was identified for the shelter expansion project when our original estimate was about $2.8 million for the shelter. And with the shelter expansion bid plus contingency coming in at $2.1 million, we have about $650,000 in savings to the Paradise Pro Projects Fund. And so with that, we are proposing the Measure V budget be supplemented with $142,000 to cover the engineer's estimate. I highlight that at this moment because once we do advertise for bids, it is possible the project could come in under budget, just as the animal shelter project did a few months ago. But with that, it is important for us to identify a full project funding picture commensurate with the engineer's estimate. And we are asking for council approval tonight to go forward with the bids, and we bring that back for contract award when those bids are received. With that, I'd be glad to answer any other questions the council might have.
When you when you talk about the engineer's estimate, whose is that our engineering department?
So actually for these specific engineers' estimates, we hired Sierra West, the same firm that is supporting the Town of Paradise in insurance mediation claim for structural losses associated with the 2018 Camp Fire. So Sierra West is an expert in the field of developing estimates for public works contracts.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
Especially for
as my town engineer, if it was you or somebody.
Sorry, normally, so for facilities, this is an area of expertise that I don't have. So relying on them to take the bid data across the state, especially in Northern California, and apply that to our specific project is key in developing that estimate.
Any other questions from the council? Do we have any cards on the subject?
I have no cards on this item.
Does anybody in the public wish to speak on this problem?
Where is this building?
The building is located at 767 Birch Street, downtown Paradise.
Next to the fire station. All right, I'll get back.
I'll move approval. And I want to just say that the fellow that we hired here from down in the Bay Area to take over our maintenance shop has done a fantastic job. And, you know, we have a fleet, we have a lot more vehicles now. And, it's a real asset to this community, what he does with his one helper. And so they need to be safe. They need to have good stuff. I'll move that we approve this item.
I'll second. 1965 was not a long time ago.
Sorry. Archaic. No.
Not that I'm sensitive or anything.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I gotta read the room.
It's been moved and seconded.
Motion by Colleton, seconded by Bolin. Councilmember Bolin?
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder?
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton?
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon?
Aye.
And Mayor Lasson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6C, consider adopting guidelines for the utility box mural project, and 2, authorize town staff to initiate a call to artists to begin the first installation of the utility box mural project. So, who's going to speak on that?
I am.
There you are.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item before you tonight was talked about before by Paradise Town Council and was directed, staff was directed to come back with some guidelines for a program to install some public art in Paradise utilizing the 16 town-owned utility boxes. So in your packet, you will see draft guidelines. Since the time, well, they are in your packet. Since the time that staff was directed to work on these guidelines, town staff has been meeting with the Paradise Art Center and other interested individuals in putting together guidelines for a program. These are based on other guidelines from other communities that have very similar projects. There are many communities that do similar projects, and so we looked at other communities to get ideas, primarily the Yuba Sutter Arts Commission and how they run a program there in their community that is very successful. So this program would be, you can see the timeline there. We intend, if this, once this is approved by council, that we will go out for a call to artists. We will give those artists about 3 months to bring their work back. Then that work will be reviewed by a selection committee that will be made up of Paradise Art Center members that is yet to be formed. And they will be making the decisions on that artwork. Then that selected art will be put onto a vinyl wrap created by a third-party vendor, and it will be installed on those utility boxes by that third-party vendor. The cost of all of that is included in your packet, and there is also an honorarium for the artist for their work and the creation of their original artwork of $250 also included in this. So we really are trying to support local Ridge artists. That brings me to the eligibility, which is also outlined in the guidelines. You know, first and foremost, we really prefer to see artists from the Paradise Ridge be selected for this. We also need to make sure that this art is viewable by people of all ages, since it is going to be public. We also want to make sure this is done by adult artists or by student artists who are working with adult artists or sponsored by a teacher or something like that. We have design themes that are suggested, as you can see in the guidelines. We really would like to see the artwork focused on Paradise history, culture, our natural environment here, and make sure these are very beautiful art pieces. So again, the selections would be made by the Paradise Art Center Selection Committee. There will be one Paradise town staff member who will serve on that committee to make sure eligibility is being followed and process is being followed, but all decisions would be made by the Paradise Art Center Selection Committee. Then that information would come back, be presented to council. We would have an installation date in April. That is our goal of April 2025. And at which point we would award the honorarium and have, we hope, a little ceremony to commemorate that. We have a budget in place already in the Recovery and Economic Development Department budget. It was intended initially that this would fund a portion of the utility boxes with partners coming in to help. We have not found additional partner funding for that piece. So tonight we are able to fund 8 utility boxes utilizing the budget we have available. We also will be looking for private donations to offset the town funding if possible, but we do have budget to complete 8 utility boxes for this first installation. We would like to see the first installation, as I said, happen in April of 2025. We intend to do a second installation for the remaining 8 utility boxes in the fall. So we would do an additional call to artists and go through the same process. So that is the program as we have presented to you. I am happy to answer any questions.
So I can't find it right now, but I thought there was a spot that said it didn't have to be tied to Paradise history.
It does not have to be, so the guidelines indicate that is a suggestion. We would like to see that, but it is not absolutely required. There are some things that we will not accept, of course, things that are profane, political statements,
Right.
things like that. Also,
Well, we don't want to see Golden Gate bridges and stuff like that. I mean, that's not us. That's,
right.
it would
Right.
seem like it should be something that's more of the history of Paradise. And I think that should be part of this, is that it is something that is Paradise, not Wales or something like that. But anyway.
Sure. So you're saying, so rather than a suggestion of this is what we would like to see, make it a little bit stronger language, it is required to have some tie-in to Paradise.
Yeah, and I don't have anything against Wales. That's not, I don't have anything against, don't give me an email on it. Just saying, I would think that should be that. That's one suggestion. The second one is, or question more, is we put these up, that's all great. Who maintains them and who keeps them looking nice?
Yes, so once the art is given over to Paradise and we install it on the utility boxes, the town does own them. Now, the good thing about these vinyl wraps is they are very sturdy. They hold up very well to weather, but they do have a life of about 2 to 3 years. So we will be watching those to ensure that we are removing them before they start to look that they're falling apart. We certainly don't want that to happen. If this is a successful project and this is something the community is excited about and the council likes the way it has rolled out, we can continue this and do another call to artists in that time. Once those wraps need to be removed, we can do another call to artists and replace them with new
So
wraps.
it's our job to take it off, and if they're
Yes.
spray painted or something like that, our job to clean them.
They will all be on vinyl wrap. So we are not allowing artists to apply the art directly themselves. They will be submitting the art to
No, I
us.
know. We have some tagger that's.
Oh, I see. Yes, then that would be upon
That's
us
us.
to clean
It's
it
us.
off. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So you know, when we first started talking about this idea, one of the ideas was having an art commission. And I agree, and like Greg had brought up in other discussions that we've had on this, you know, what's art to me may not be art to you, and I'm a member of the Art Center. I could be on that committee. I'm not a professional artist, and I just think that giving this away, we're funding this whole thing, it's our boxes we're gonna decorate, like, I don't mind having them involved, but like I say, they could put together a committee of nobody that has any art experience, and the fact that your proposed program, they make the decision. I think it needs to be our decision, and Ron was mentioning to me earlier that he thought, well, yeah, but it comes back to the council to approve. Apparently it doesn't. Yeah, see, I don't want to spend a lot of money to say, here, you guys go do this. I don't mind involving them, the people like that, but I think that I'd rather be an ad hoc committee or a subcommittee, where we have either staff or council, I don't know about council, but at least staff members, so that we have some control over what gets put on our boxes, That's just my opinion.
Understood. So I do want to clarify, the way these guidelines are written, to be very clear, it is intended that the selection committee would make the decisions. It would be presented to council. The final decisions would be presented, but it would not be for any changes or input at that point. The decision would be made.
What's the point of presenting it? Why bring it to me if I have no say over it? If we, in concurrence, did not approve of one of the designs that they selected, what in this program?
Well, we could certainly remove that step. If you would rather not see that at the end, before the installation, we could do that, or we could do a different process. It was my understanding from the discussion that occurred around the Art Commission, council was not interested in selecting art. So that.
That's us.
Yes. And other communities that have similar projects work in a similar fashion with an art expert group like the Paradise Art Center, like the Yuba Sutter Arts Commission, that makes those decisions. And in that community, they prefer that separation. So that is why it's presented that way, but certainly this is a draft, so we can change it.
You also talked to some people, I assume, from talking to you earlier, where they had art commissions, and I know I read about them, I've looked them up when I got interested in this idea. There are jurisdictions that form, just like our planning commission or anything else. And you can set up the criteria to where the people on that commission are citizens from our town, have expertise in art or whatever. At least it involves the people. We're just giving just a group in town, little nonprofits, say, here, you're in charge of this. I don't know. I mean, I understand that we don't want to be the art commission, but we could have it could be members of the art center, it could be members of the community, it could be staff members, it could be, at least, I don't know. We're spending public dollars and we're letting somebody else just run the whole show. And we have no say. We don't get, I mean, it's one thing maybe if your plan, if whatever they picked, if they were shown to us and said, yeah, you all like it, I mean, it's pretty simple. Like Greg brought up a really good point. It probably should be, there should be criteria that like do Paradise history. That's the theme for all of our
Yes, so I will mention that discussion came up in our discussions in putting together these guidelines, and it was the opinion of the artists that were involved in that, there are professional artists who are involved in this committee, that they felt that artistic license should be preserved, that it should not be too restrictive. Now, that this is a draft, that is up to council to weigh in on, and I will accept that direction to go back and change that if that is the direction of the council.
I'd like to weigh in on it if I could. I have 2 items I'd like to talk about on it. On page 77, you say after this budget could be offset by private contributions for each utility box, but you don't say how or where. The reason I asked that question is I had to follow up. I have a $2,000 check for this program to add 2 more boxes, so you're going to do 10 boxes, not 8. And I had to find out, we could send it to the town of Paradise, and you would have that. So I'm not sure who I hand it over to. It's you, Jim, or, okay, I'll hand it to you.
That's fantastic, thank you, and my apologies, we don't have the kind of call for donations set up yet. We intend to do that alongside the call for artists.
But I'd like to see that in this particular document on that page 77, that you would send the money to the town of Paradise, more to follow, or something like that, so people know. They don't send it to the art center, they don't send it someplace else, they send it to the town of Paradise.
Yes, there will be a separate call for donations that is alongside the call to artists that will have all of the information about how to do that.
Colette and I talked about this earlier. So if Joe Blow's Sandwich Shop or PG&E wants to sponsor a box, do they get recognition? Do they get advertising? Does it going to say Ron Masson?
I don't want to say anybody's name.
That's true, but I'm just saying, that has to be written into the guidelines.
Yes, so we had that discussion with these guidelines. It was a little bit different. We weren't talking about kind of sponsorships per se. We were talking about primarily student artists. And so if there was a student from the high school who was working maybe with the art teacher and submitted art, would we want it to say, Paradise High School on it? That's a lovely thing to support. But we had a great discussion about whether these are signs or billboards and what we really want to portray. We really wanted it to be art, and so we said, no, there would not be information like that. So in this case, and that can be written into the guidelines, that there will be no, sponsorship information or, words to promote a business, a person, a school, and anything.
But even to that point, Colette, like knowing artists, most artists sign their work. So is that in the guidelines? If that artist's work is selected by the committee, is their signature on it?
Yeah, that is not included in the guidelines. That is something we would have to think about.
I think you need to take that on, to have that discussion, and it should be minimal. We don't want it in a great big bold letter saying, Joe did this, look like graffiti. It should be small and almost innocuous, but at least it's not, as they do on
We can specify a
paint.
size, it has to fit inside a,
They own
box.
Well, we own the picture though, because we paid
own the
for it.
picture, we own the
Yeah, all right, we can describe it. The second item I'd like to change a little bit is on the page 78. Where you state artwork themes may, but are not required to. I'd like you to delete a couple words and say artwork themes are required to meet those 2 items, and that would get rid of the Wales or the Golden Gate Bridge, because they should represent the various aspects of Paradise Ridge's history, heritage, diversity, culture, architecture, nature, geography, etc., and they should reflect the specific, or they could reflect a specific neighborhood or area of the box location that you already have in. I'd rather not have it so they have that discretion to to put the Golden Gate Bridge on there.
I don't have a problem with Wales and Golden Gate Bridge, I just want to get it out there.
Understand?
No, we know now.
I'm just saying.
No, it's a public record.
All right, so I would like those two changes made to this one, okay?
Do you have concurrence, or are you just giving direction?
No, I am saying, making a suggestion. and
Okay,
then
that's
see
what I
where
just wanted to clarify.
I used the word suggestion twice.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted
We're
to
hearing
clarify.
all of the input. We're hearing
So,
all of
that's
the
right.
input.
So,
I think you did a great job.
no, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions, comments, or suggestions from the council?
Colette, thank you for your work on this. I like the idea that it's a vinyl wrap. I was a little bit concerned about the whole painting and how that's gonna, I think there's so much more artistic control with the vinyl wrap, so nice job.
Standardizes.
And we're not married to it for years. I mean, it's
No,
something
no,
that's,
this is a-
it's got a life.
It has a life, and
And
it
it's
has
not
a
long.
specific way, and it's taken down
Right.
fully.
That is,
Have you been able to find out like what graffiti removal, whether that's possible with these vinyl wraps or?
It
what
is, and we're
costs?
getting the specifics on, if there's specific, cleaner that we need, but yes, it
Hopefully it
is,
won't
yeah.
happen.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared.
Are there any cards on this subject?
John Ramaya?
I was just wondering, we've narrowed it down to history. What if some of these themes, somebody wanted to sponsor in the way of fire prevention, like a Smokey the Bear theme? Does that work in or not? We wouldn't want our name on it or anything, but just,
Does Smokey live up here?
No, you can do Ready Raccoon. Ready-
okay.
That's right.
Ready Raccoon, but not Smokey the Bear.
Now, I do want to call attention to one of the no-nos on the list, which is the first one, and that is, it was decided in this group that there should not be reference to the 2018 Camp Fire or any other fires. And that is because this project was really intended to be about the community and our future, and not as much about our past. We have a lot about recovery. That's coming from the recovery director. We do a lot with recovery, but really we want to celebrate the community and what we are beyond the 2018 Camp Fire. So,
love it, good. I like it, perfect. That's great.
Anybody else want to speak on the subject? Come forward up, please come forward.
Hi, Carrie Max. Is this something Paradise knows about yet, or is this just something that you're discussing? I mean, the town, we don't know about it.
yes,
Yeah.
so staff was given direction to come back with a project to council with guidelines and how it might work. Once council approves this, so it sounds like tonight they may be agreeing generally with the direction, there's going to be some changes, we'll have to make a couple of tweaks. We'll come back out with a big advertising for a call to artists, as well as a call for donations, and then it will be much more widely known.
So
we haven't
exciting.
done that yet.
So exciting. So I have a couple questions. I heard $250 for a minute, and then I heard $1,000 for each one, and then I heard art, and then I heard a wrap with the art, and so, art, does it,
So,
sometimes you need to,
yeah, so we are asking artists to produce original art to be put onto these utility boxes. Once that is submitted to us, there will be a selection committee that decides, yes, we want these 8 or to 10 pieces of art. Then we will take that art, we will submit it to a third-party vendor, which will put it on a vinyl wrap. It's similar to what you see on cars, like the Action News Now vehicles, right? That have all of the words and graphics, and it looks really cool.
so the art needs to get pictured going around something, not just a flat idea.
No, it's going to go around the utility box.
Gotcha.
Yep. So then it will be installed on the utility box in an installation, we hope ceremony or event that happens in the spring. April is Arts and Culture Month, so it will coincide with that. We also want to have it done by Gold Nugget Days. So to kind of, really bring the community together. Also, artists that are selected will be compensated for their work and creativity in the form of $250 honorarium.
But it costs about $1,000 to get her done.
Correct, yes, but then
Gotcha.
there's the cost to create the vinyl wrap, have it installed, so that's the other piece of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
One more question. Have you had any conversation with Mike Hudak about the traffic control?
Yes, yes.
Because when I talked about this a year or so ago, he was saying he was opposed to such idea because it creates heat and those things generate heat, and so there's some, we don't want to have those things fail, the
Yes.
electronics in them.
Yes, Mike is aware of this. He even provided all of the dimensions of
Yeah,
each
they
of the
would be in
boxes.
favor of it.
That I couldn't answer.
You might wanna
He didn't
talk
say
to-
no when I asked him for the
Well, no,
dimensions.
I mean, because what he brought up to me was the fact that he's worked in jurisdictions where they've done that, and it causes problems with some of the traffic control boxes, because they generate heat and there's electronics in there, so we just want to make sure that this
We can check
idea
on
is
that.
not going to
Yeah,
damage.
we can
our-
check on that.
Okay, what's the council's view on this as far as the two suggestions I made? That is that they put a change to it that adds where the contribution would go to, and also that artwork themes are required to meet those items under 2A and 2B.
I don't think you can make a suggestion and give them a check for $2,000 at the same time.
I won't give them the 2,000 until it's approved.
And narrow the language for, what they're.
Yes, I think that's part of what the mayor is saying.
Was that the second part of what you said?
Yes, that
Okay.
rather than saying may have, I forget the exact, I don't have it in front of me, may include history, culture, but not required, but take that and say it is required.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
art themes are required to.
Are
meet
required to
items
have those,
Item
yeah.
2A and 2B.
Right.
Do you understand those changes?
Yes.
I move approval with those changes.
Real quick, do you want to add the permission to allow the artist to sign the work? That was another thing you all discussed. That's not in here.
What do you guys think about that?
To address that in the guidelines.
They're-
Yeah, like
artists are
a
gonna-
size, same.
Artists sign their work, and
They
so
do.
if you're going to accept their work,
Postcard size.
Yeah, I think, so what, yeah, it would look like just a writing in dimensions in which their signature must fit, so that it's not the entirety of the box, which I doubt would happen, but you never know.
because there are artists that do that.
I would add that to the
Yes,
motion.
we can certainly do that.
Okay, and then Woody, you had a concern about the council not having.
We have to get a second first.
Well,
Yeah, but I'm talking about another change. He mentioned that, we just had a signature. He mentioned he wanted the council to actually have.
Well, I just,
Did you want that in there or not?
no, well, I mean, it'd be great if we could see what's being suggested, I mean,
It would just be a yes, no for us, right?
Yeah, it would just
Oh, I
be-
want to change this color to this
no,
color.
it wouldn't be having to do with that, just have, if the committee submitted something and collect, or whoever her designee is gonna be the staff person saying, okay, it meets all the guidelines, if, I don't know if we need to.
I don't want to add that to my, because I don't want us to become a part of that. We have enough stuff to do.
Why?
We have enough stuff to do, and then.
Yeah, we do, but, we're gonna put these things
May
out.
I
we're
make
spending
a
our money doing it.
suggestion? This is, I'm thinking out loud, perhaps would council like to designate a member to sit on the selection committee to be a voting member?
I'm just kidding.
Sounds like the vice mayor wants to do it.
I'll volunteer if you really, if the council wants a member of the
No,
council.
I don't, I'm just saying, that's just my feeling about it. We're just giving away this thing.
I know, but I won't talk on these two. Okay.
You're paying for it, you do it.
Okay.
Yes, I would put in there that we have one member of the council on that committee.
To be named later.
To be named later.
Okay.
Nominate Greg Nolan.
We could also designate it as the mayor or their designee.
There you go.
All right, so we had a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Moving and second, with those changes.
I have a fourth.
Motion by Bullen, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bullen.
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder.
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
And Mayor Lasson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Art will be the death of us. I'll tell you that.
Oh, they paid in 3 years.
Good job, Colette.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. All right. Let us move on to the next item. Let's see if we can catch up to where we're at. Okay, item 6D, consider concurring with staff's recommendation to award the contract for the Strategic Healthcare Recovery Plan to Ameris Group for the amount not to exceed $150,000, and 2, adopt resolution number 64, a resolution of the Town Council, Town of Paradise, awarding the Strategic Healthcare Recovery Plan contract for that group.
Yes, again, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm very pleased to present this item. You may recall we discussed this at length the need for a strategic healthcare recovery plan to really identify the inventory we have, to look at all of the data that exists, to identify gaps and get community input, and then create a strategic plan for how we fill those gaps and improve healthcare in our community. So council did allocate $75,000 up to $75,000 to pay for this study. Adventist Health Feather River Foundation Board also contributed $75,000 to this effort. So with that, we went out for an RFP, or a request for proposals, to eligible consultants who would be able to prepare this plan for us. We received 5 eligible proposals. They were all excellent. A selection committee reviewed those proposals, and we were unanimous in our selection of Iberis Group. They were the top score getter and our unanimous first choice. They have a great deal of experience in this area, in healthcare studies specifically. We also were very impressed, and it made us feel much better that they, as a rule, do not represent or do studies for hospitals or other healthcare entities. They only do studies for municipalities, counties, and governmental organizations. So we felt that really created a very fair system for them that we felt very comfortable with. So they were selected. So tonight we asked council to give us the authorization to award that contract to Iberis Group, and for not to exceed $150,000. They are willing to work within our time frame, in which they will provide meetings and meetings with you all, with the community, getting public input, collecting that information, presenting a draft plan, and presenting a final plan to council and to the community by March of 2025. So we ask that you authorize those actions for us tonight.
And I just have one thing I didn't really see. So the $150,000 cost is being split.
Yes, correct. So the town is putting in $75,000 and Feather River Foundation is putting in $75,000.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just to confirm, we will own the data and everything?
Yes, so we were very clear that the town would be driving this, so that is why we put out the RFP. All of the information came through my department, through me personally, and so we will own this data. I am the project contact, so this is a study that we will have, we will not lose it, and we will have it presented publicly, and it will be available to any entity that wants it and can use it. We think this will be a really great asset for us at the town as we try for economic development with healthcare, but also for healthcare groups that are looking to come to town. This is the information that they are looking for as well.
Perfect, thank you.
So will the data go to the Feather River Foundation also?
So they will receive the data, yes. So there are 2 board members that will be on the project committee.
Yeah, but this,
along with
I got
council.
this, I realize that's not the hospital, but they're associated, I mean,
They are associated, but they are completely separate entities. I am actually on the board of the Feather River Health Foundation, as are many other community members and people completely not associated with the hospital. And so this is intended, and actually from the board was very strong direction that
I'm just
it's
curious
not
about this
the ability-
consulting you're hiring that does not work for hospitals or anybody. But, so is it what they're gonna take their money?
Well, it is a foundation, and, yeah, so.
Yeah, I saw their new building pad down there in Lower Skyline, their new clinic.
So do you want to talk about that as far as we're going to shop that around?
Yeah.
We're going to mention that.
And again, this data is going to be ours to encourage more healthcare up here, whether it be Adventist Health or somebody else. Because again, our end goal is we want a hospital and emergency room here. And I think that this is our first step in getting it. And again, whether it's Adventist Health or somebody, I don't care what sign it says out front, we just need this.
All right, any cards on this subject?
I have no cards on this item.
I move approval.
Second?
Moved and seconded?
Motion by Bullen, seconded by Colleton. Councilmember Bullen?
Aye.
Councilmember Crowder.
Aye.
Councilmember Colleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Tryon.
Aye.
Mayor Lisson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Council agenda items, 7A1, that'll be still on the list to be discussed. Is that something we're going to bring up here tonight?
What?
The
7A?
redevelopment of Cooper Council properties over 1.5 acres?
Yes.
Okay. let's
On
do
the
it.
agenda. I had this put on the agenda because we currently have, what is it, a 30-foot setback around your property if it's larger than 1.5 acres. And that just, that's ridiculous. We need to have the property cleared, so I want to raise that to like 3 acres or 5 acres or whatever it should be. It just doesn't make sense. There's 2 1/4 acres behind my house, and that's all they did. The new owners fortunately cleared the whole 2 1/4 acres, which makes me feel much more fire safe. And we heard people testify here in front of us that their insurance was canceled not because of their property, but because of adjoining properties were overgrown, and that's not just 1/3 acre, 1/4 acre, 1/2 acre lots. We have a lot of lots that are more than 1.5 acres, and all we require is that they clear 30 feet, and if you have a house, then 100 feet from the house, but nobody actually goes and really measures that. We don't have the drone technology working yet, so my suggestion is that we change this, and if you own property, you need to take care of it in our town. And so I would suggest that it go from 1.5 acres to 3 acre minimum, unless fire experts think something else is a better idea.
So just for Councilman Culleton's presentation, I just wanted to, clearly identify what the code language says in there. So, in the defensible space, all unimproved parcels greater than 1.5 acres in size should be required to maintain a field break, right, around the perimeter of the property. And then what the field break consists of is your maintain, the weeds down to 4 inches, grouping living trees up, and of course providing any nearby structure 100 feet. But what does that really look like? So here in the diagram, you can see that greater than 1.5 acres, you're provided a 30-foot field break around. And then that's, if you have 2 neighboring parcels, that would be a 60-foot field break in between. If you're greater than 1.5 acre parcel, is adjacent to a structure, you have to provide that adjacent structure the equivalent to 100 feet. So whatever you make up the difference here. I think you can, it kind of works. So that's really how it maps out, in the field. We do measure 100 feet from structures to verify compliance, to get it that way. So how many parcels do we have that are greater than 1.5 acres? So there's 1,229 parcels that are greater than 1.5 acres. And you can see here's the breakdown. So if you go up to 2 acres, that would be additional 364 parcels that it would affect. If you went up to 2.5 acres, that's obviously you can just see the breakdown of the parcels. Currently, there's of these greater than 1.5 acre parcels, we have 133 that are out of compliance. But that's the same percentage as we have for all the parcels, right? So we have about a 10% non-compliance rate out there. So that really quantifies that these larger parcels aren't out of compliance more than smaller parcels are, right? It's kind of a town-wide compliance rate. So I'm here, as well as the fire chief is here to answer any questions that you may have.
So, Tony, just a question, and I think you and I had touched on this. So, we have to go, this is what it says, but you or the fire chief can say, look at a parcel and say, this needs to go beyond this for whatever reason that you may deem it. So it could be stricter than what it is.
Correct. We do have that codified in municipal code, that at the discretion of the fire chief, if more needs to be done on a parcel, that he can direct, more weed abatement activities to happen on a particular parcel.
And that would include, say you've got a log deck in the center of that 5 acres or 3 acres or what have you. You'd say, if it's in the center, even though it's got the clearance, that log deck's gotta go.
At the direction of the fire chief, he can remove the combustibles, the vegetative fuel load. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, but you got, like my neighbor, and I'd have to go look. I don't think when it was cleared 2 years ago by the previous owner, and they did the 30-foot swath, 30 foot from my fence, it was probably not 100 feet from my home. So, you say you measure it, but all I can speak about is what happened on my property 2 years ago. That 2 1/4 acres that is right next to my fence line with that 30-foot swath there, if that thing catches fire, even though I had a firehouse right up the street from me, I mean, that anymore with the wind that we have here with the trees gone and everything, I understand that somebody says, well, that's a field, that lets us stop it. My fence, my $10,000 fence would probably catch fire if that field caught on fire before the fire department got there. If I wasn't home to go out there with the hose or something. It just seems to me that if you've got developed lots where people are moving back and you have large parcels, 2 acres or whatever, 1.5 acres, and all you gotta do is put a 30-foot strip around it, it doesn't really protect people. And people are having their insurance canceled because of these lots. Whether, gee, that gives us a fire break and that's all it's designed for, it's not gonna protect my fence. And so, the fact that, I don't know, does the average citizen know, like, call the fire chief, come out and look at my neighbor's property, I don't feel safe. Why don't we just make people that own property that are overgrown, clean them up? What's the harm of changing this 1.5 acres, making it a bigger, why not?
Oh, you don't have to convince me, Councilman Colton, you have to, talk to the other council people.
Question for the fire chief, if that's okay. In your experience, is that 30-foot swath good enough to stop fire, slow the spread? And I understand that Councilman Colton's concerned about his home, but if a fire was to hit that 30-foot fire break, do you feel that, as fire chief, that that's sufficient?
So that is a really open-ended question. So there are several factors that go into the fuel loading near your house is different than the fuel loading down off of Wayland and, down low. Weather, right? Depends on time of year, depends on topography, the slope, depends on the fuel loading in relation to which area of the slope it's on. There are just so many variables to that. I can't say, 30 feet is good, 40 feet would be better, 50 feet would be great, clearing a lot would be fantastic.
Yes.
But the problem is, everything comes down to money, right? And maintenance, and you're also changing fuel modeling, you're changing the, if you have brush pockets, and you remove all that, you're allowing more sunlight in and more grasses to grow. Now you're having to manage grasses instead of fuel, where a member gets into a field that's, an acre grass field, It burns quicker. There's so many variables into it. If it gets into Scotch broom, it's the same problem though, right? Because it's nice and oily, although it has some moisture to it. Scotch broom is a terrible weed, but it is part of it. It's a weed, so we'd like to see the Scotch broom gone on it as well. Some of the bigger lots, some of the ideas are, if 30 feet doesn't appear to be enough, depends on where it's at in relation to the town, then we go to 50 feet, right? Maybe we cut some X's through it, cut some pathways through that in order to be able to, if something were to start in there, obviously if it's a vacant lot, there should be no power, there should be no anything on there to be able to start a fire. It would be something ancillary coming over from another lot into another lot, that's unoccupied. There's also several parcels around here under this current condition that we're working under, and notice it when I'm driving up the Skyway, where you've got 40 or 50 acres of workable dirt. Dirt's exposed. I mean, you've got construction going on, lots of dirt. Then you've got a lot that needs some attention. Then you've got a lot that has had some attention. So it's kind of not every lot is, worst case scenario. So I understand, I understand the fact that clearances need to be had. I understand that there's also variables in there with the weather, the wind, the type of fuel loading, all that stuff is in there.
So if majority, I would say the majority of these parcels are probably on the canyon rim. They go off into a valley somewhat. So if we say they all have to be clean, now you're getting people down into those valleys cleaning and doing what we were just talking about before with Fish and Game. You're taking that grass out and you're having erosion issues. So all I'm saying is you start making a determination of this. If it's flat, that's one thing. If you're going down a hill into a valley or down up into the canyon, now you're cleaning however many acres going down into that. My question is, where does it stop? Where do people aren't going to be able to do that.
These aren't all on the perimeter though.
No. I didn't say that. I said the majority, there's a lot of them that are though, that do go down in those areas. That's where most of their properties down there, little of their properties on top. I know that's true. I'm not asking it. I know it's true.
So, in thinking about this over the last few weeks, with property sizes, and it's to your point of where, okay, it's 2.5 acres lots now, it's 5 acre lots, it's 10 acre lots, it's the 12.5 acre lots. I mean, where's a good line to capture the majority of the lots that make a difference within town?
Okay, but here's my issue. If I have a half acre or a third acre lot, and it's undeveloped, right, how the fire burned it down, and I got weeds on it, I'm gonna get a citation, and I'm required to clear that entire lot. But my neighbor that can have 1.5 acre lot and doesn't live there, no development, he only has to put a 30-foot perimeter around it. That's the part that, if we want it safe, if we don't, if the weeds are the problem, are the fire danger, then take them down. I mean, whatever is reasonable. I just think that when you say, if you have 1.5 acres or more, you only got to do a 30-foot perimeter. That's not fair to all of us with a half acre or 9/10 of an acre or 3/4 of an acre. They're having to clean the whole darn thing, It's like, if you own property and you live in this town that's trying to recover from what happened to us, you need to be responsible for it. And I've heard Greg say this in the past. If you can't take care of the property, then you need to sell it. You have a responsibility. We have a lot of developers that bought up a lot of cheap dirt, and it's sitting empty, and it's sitting out of compliance. So, I don't know, I just think that, I just happen to have a 2.25 acre property adjoining my property, Fortunately, the new owners just had the whole thing cleared. And we all have that problem, with weeds grow back, and if you take out the Scotch broom, then the grass is a lot easier. I'm not worried about a little grass fire, because the wind blows now. We have wind all the time in this town. It's a different topography that we live in. So that's why I brought it up. And, if there's all these reasons why it shouldn't be done, then it shouldn't be done. But I wanted it to be a discussion that we have here. I think I'd be in favor of seeing how can we change it? is it 2 acres? I mean, you don't have a lot of perimeter things sitting on that canyon edge that are 2 acres, Maybe you do, I don't know.
So Chief, do you think that maybe then a good compromise might be to go ahead and extend it from 30 to 50? And that would pretty much take care of the smaller lots. I mean, they would be a complete clean.
So the fuel continuity, so we all know that the fuels are more dangerous standing up than they are laying down, right? So the shorter the grass, the taller the brush, everything like that. So when things are cut down or the continuity's changed and things are on the ground, I've had people, we saw it when we drove up on Highway 32, right? And you look at the fuels that are on the ground, they're much more safer on the ground laying down than they are standing up, and the continuity's broken up. So when you put perimeters around lots, you're breaking up that continuity of the fuels, right? And so there's portions of that. 30 feet, is in some aspects, depending on the fuel type, is good. 50 feet would be better, right? So there is, I think, some room if the council wants to look at that. There probably would be some room in there to either look at the size of the lot or the perimeter width that goes around the lots, or both.
So let me so if you had, sorry. I was waiting until you sat down.
Perfect.
So if you had, and I'm not talking the canyon properties that are like this, I'm talking a flat property that's 5 acres.
Sure.
And you do 50 feet perimeter, would it maybe be advantageous to put a strip down the middle as well to?
And so when I talk about putting like a corner-to-corner X through the property, all I'm talking about is opening up, what's the width of a masticator? 6 feet? So if I had pass through, there's 12 feet. What that does is if something were to get in there, it just allows us to get in there. Instead of fighting through the brush, opening a chainsaw up out of the compartment, and cutting our way in. It just allows us an access through. So it does help, and I think in certain areas, that would be great to run a strip down the middle or exit. Can't be that much more to touch corners of the property, just open up access. But that is, yes, it's for ease for us, and if something were to come out of another property into a property that had that, would be easier for us to gain access to it.
So if we were going to go to 50 feet, would that maybe be something to look at as well? Because just like I said, if you're going to do it, it's not going to cost that much more to.
Yeah, and if there's, depends on the property and the fuel on the property. Some properties, they don't need it. We can just get in there, no problem. But there's some that are heavily overgrown, haven't been touched in 6 years. Those type of properties probably need to trailblaze, get through the middle of it, find the cars and everything else in the middle of it that's in there, and those log decks. And, I think, speaking on the log decks too, I know things were decked up for a long time. They are to a point, now I'm not in the timber industry, but I do know that when logs sit laid down on the ground, happens with your firewood at the house, right? And then the wood starts rotting. And I think we're to a point now to where it's more of a hazard on those lots with those log decks than they are of what the property owner is going to do good with them.
There's no value.
There's no value, and they're all punked out. And so I think we're probably to a point to where that's more of a hazard than it is good. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So what's the will of the council?
I do have a card on this item.
Okay.
John Ramaya?
I just want to add a few things on to what Chief Needle said. When we go clear a lot, whether we're being paid by the town for a 30-foot, if you have your assets or exposures, as we call them, on top of that hill, would do 50, 75 feet, no additional charge. And the main reason for that is, number one, it's safer, and number two, there's a lot of contractors in my business that a fire goes through and wipes out a house. Well, he said I had defensible space, I was good to go. And it's getting harder in our business to get insurance without them saying that fuel modification for fire or fire breaks are not covered. As far as what spaces, I'd like to see the 50-foot. I'd also like something that says that the contiguous fuels need to be broken up, and no piece should be bigger than 2 acres with a 50-foot strip of fuel that's modified. The reason for this is, I know it used to be flames over 4 foot, you didn't have a hand crew to go direct on it. You basically put water on it from further away. If you've got a hand crew that's dealing with 5 or 6 foot flames, you aren't going to put them in there. You're going to cut line back ways, go indirect. Think of the flame heights and what you have to do to keep the flame heights 2 or 3 feet. That's the best. I think you agree with me.
The fuel,
It's all yours.
so when you look at the standing fuel again, right, so it emits, you always look at 1.5 times the fuel height, and the amount of BTUs of the British thermal units that come off of that, the standing brush is quite a bit, and there are times where we will pick the grassier approach, right, instead of the brush approach, because it's less heat on the firefighters as we are going in to put a fire out. So there is some to fuel continuity and the amount of fuel loading per acre on certain properties.
And that's why, the only reason I brought this whole discussion up. The property next door to my lot, which was owned by a firefighter, the fuels were over 4 feet tall. And it's mostly grass and brush, but it was over 4 feet tall. And so if it had caught fire with, and I didn't think it was 30 feet, but whatever, and DJ did it, so I don't know what, you know what I mean? It's like, now I got flames that are taller than my fence, right? And if there's any wind, that's what I'm saying. And I know this exists in a lot of people that have rebuilt their homes and they have lots by them that all they have to do is cut a perimeter around it. We own the town owned a lot over here that were the Little League ones that was overgrown, that we never took care of, and we even got a ticket for it, but that's all we had to do because it's more than 2 acres or something, was cut a 30. It's still, whatever. That's why I brought it up. I appreciate the discussion, whatever the council wants to do.
Well, that's where I'm at right now. Very interesting discussion. What's the will of the council? What's the direction? Go ahead.
I think it's something to look at, and to Greg's point, I mean, I agree, let's not get into, 3 acres into the canyon, but on flat parcels, we had a lady speak last month that was concerned, because I think she had a 5-acre parcel next to her, and she was concerned with the ember casts. So I think it's something to look at.
Okay. Tony, do you have enough information to look into this from what we have spoken up to you?
Is it the consensus of the council to?
Well, I hear 2 over here, and I think you indicated, what's your view? Do you want them to look into it or not?
I could see looking to, increasing it to 50 feet.
Okay.
Council members, if I may, if the majority of you want to take a look at this, it may be a good idea for something like this with all the variables that have been discussed tonight, that maybe you appoint an ad hoc committee to work with Tony and the chief and, come back with a series of recommendations.
That makes sense. We all in agreement that an ad hoc committee, which is 1 or 2 meetings to work with them? Anybody disagree with that idea? Okay, hearing none.
Why don't you just, I don't agree with that. I mean, all of us got things to do. You guys are the fire experts, and I think Rose brought up a good idea. I mean, I'm just saying, like, my go-to thing was just make everybody that has a lot that's overgrown clear it. Okay, maybe that's not reasonable. Maybe the 50-foot thing is, you said it, chief, you said, hey, is 50 feet better than 30? Yeah. Is it being cleared, cut all the way down better yet? So you guys are the experts. You've heard a couple of suggestions. We're looking for, come back with a couple of ideas for us, what you, as professionals, what you think. I mean, you can put me or Rose or Greg or we're not the experts, you are, but it is an issue. And so, I would value what you say would be a better suggestion. I'm not worried about what the cost is to the property owner. We own the property, we have a responsibility. And so, and everybody that lives here, most all of us, have been through what happened. And we want to make it so that never happens again.
I appreciate what Councilman Carlton's saying, but I have to disagree with him on the comment that we're not worried about the cost. The costs do impact our residents, and anytime we do a mandate that increases their cost, it impacts them. So we have to be cognizant of that. We could say all 30 acre and less has to be cleared, and they have to pay the cost. That would be just unreasonable. So we have to have some reasonableness added to this thing, and that's the reason why you'd have a council member on there to steer it, because I wouldn't want them to come back with 30 acres, and I wouldn't want them to come back with no
I don't
change.
think they will.
I know, but it's called argument by absurdity, okay? You said you didn't care about the cost, I care about the cost that we put on the residents, just like a tax, okay? This is a yearly tax we're putting on the residents.
You know what, we put that on everybody that has less than an acre and a half. That goes to everybody that has to clean their entire property.
Understand.
Okay, so that's your tax, you've already done the tax. So you got this redebating thing, so I'm just saying that make people.
You're now adding to the roads that have greater than an acre and a half an additional
You don't know
tax.
that. You don't
Yes,
know
I
what
do.
they brought back.
If you have to clear it all, that's an additional tax. Okay, that's my point. So,
Oh, so then, you know what, everybody with that third acre, they don't have to clear it all.
I didn't say that.
We're gonna change the ordinance.
let's try to be a little bit reasonable here, Woody. Now, all I'm suggesting is we need to add one more person, a member of the council to that, as they suggested, as the town manager suggested. Do I hear, let me just ask the council. What do you guys feel about all of this? You want to add a member of the council to this, as our 1 or 2 meetings? Sure. Rose?
Yeah.
That's 2. Steve?
Yeah, if it will help, if it's something that, you know, Tony and the chief would think that would help them get to where they need to, yeah.
So do you guys want a member of the council talk with you?
That's a loaded question, guys.
You can say no to that.
Or yes.
Well, of course, the input would be helpful, right? Or direction from the council would be to bring you back what you're looking for, right? I mean, if, we can certainly make our suggestions and.
So here's the problem with your ad hoc committee. Let's say that it's me and Rose, or let's say that it's Ron and Greg, it doesn't matter what two or however, then you're gonna be influenced by what 2 of us decision makers say. And so the recommendation you bring back to us is gonna be influenced by that. You're the experts. We brought up an issue. So bring back to us what your suggestions.
And trust the council members that they will listen to them as experts.
And I trust the experts that they're expert enough that they wouldn't roll over and say, oh, well, I agree with what you're saying, because I'm reasonable.
So let's just do it, and let's do it forward.
I heard 3 people, I'll say 4, there's 4 of us, so that's the direction of council, that you guys will go back and look at it. You'll have a member of the council with you, you guys can pick whoever you want.
So I want to clarify, one member of the council, not
The
2,
council needs to get that direction, whether it's 1 or 2, and who.
and then who it
And
is.
the council should select who it is as well.
This
Yes.
is what the town manager.
Who would like to be on? Let me ask that, how about that?
I do, because I brought it up.
And I'm,
You want to be on?
yes.
You guys okay with that? Rose, you okay with that?
If you want to be on it, Rose, I'll give it my place, because I thought you had a good suggestion, and I just want to hear it. I think it's something that should be dealt with. So if you want to do it, I'll give it my spot.
No, I'm fine, whatever you guys want.
So the suggestion is
You.
Steve and...
I'll do it. Yes.
You'll do it now?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Steve and Rose. All right, we don't need to vote on this, right? It's just direction.
As long as there's no objection to it, you're fine.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is council reports on committee representation. You want to start over there, Woody? Woody, would you like to do a readout on your committee?
I didn't go to any committee meetings, but I did go to, we did some committee meeting today. We had the liaison committee meeting with the Parks and Rec Department, and gee, they've got a bunch of land they're clearing all around the perimeter of the town. How about that? And what else did I do? I went to a ribbon cutting for a new business in town, and that's it.
Well, we had a small group of legislators, the majority of them from Southern California. There was one from Placer County, arranged with Gallagher's office to come up here, and they spent several hours, toured Paradise to see where our recovery was and what it was looking at, and a couple of them were on the finance committee for the state, and was kind of, I think we made an impression where maybe they can help us with some funding, hopefully. I went to the Habitat for Humanity ribbon cutting, our new officer swear-in, the great long overdue animal shelter groundbreaking. Parks and Rec had a community meeting which dealt with kind of what Woody was talking about here with the perimeter open space around the town. I met with a builder yesterday that is interested in doing some small tracts in Paradise, anywhere from 6 to 12 homes at a time. I think that could be something that will come about, we'll see. I also was at the Parks and Rec liaison meeting today. I had a fairly long talk with Lamalfa's office regarding our tax bill, which is still sitting, waiting to get to the Senate floor. There is still some hope that will get there this month, but there is no timetable. It may be until after the election. We don't know. I know that Senator Padilla is pushing as well to get it brought to the floor. So still being worked on, very active, but kind of very disappointed that there's no action to date. And that's what I've got.
Right. There was no LAFCO meeting, and animal shelter, that was good. Neat to see that happening. Swearing in was good, so there, yeah, there's really nothing more.
Rose?
I went to both the BCAG and Butte County Air Quality Management meetings on August 22nd, and the Paradise Transit Center is still a go. The project is scheduled at $2,074,000, and it's funded by CRRSAA, which is the Coronavirus Response Supplemental Appropriations Act. Unfortunately, there was a $550,000 cost increase on that project. Fortunately, the members of BCAG voted to go ahead and transfer money from the Butte Regional Transit Capital Resources to complete the project construction. So that project is still a go, hopefully set for October. And then on September 4th, I attended the Butte County Fire Safe Council meeting, and it was our annual retreat to plan out the upcoming year.
I attended the BCAG and BQ Air Quality Management via Zoom on the 22nd. 23rd, I was at a Habitat for Humanity ribbon cutting on Greenwood Lane. Also attended Officer Gustavo Diaz's swearing in on the 26th. Attended the animal shelter groundbreaking, again, well-attended, and it's really going to be a nice place once they're done. Attended the PRPD wildfire buffer meeting on September 5th. I attended the Eastern Sequoia ribbon cutting. On the 6th, I had an interview with King 5, the Seattle television station. They're concerned that up in Washington, they're not paying attention to all the fire, and they wanted to know why Paradise was doing so well. And so they're hoping to influence the folks up there to start doing what we're doing down here. And then last but not least, on September 7th, I attended the Table Mountain Lodge rededication. The guys have been around for a long time. Shortly after the gold rush, they were established here in Paradise. So that's pretty much it. Are there any requests for future agenda items from any other council members? Hearing none, I'll move on to item 8A, Town Manager Report.
Just very quickly, council members had lots of check-in meetings with various community groups, Board of Realtors, business leaders, PID, PRPD, Feather River Health Foundation, Campfire Collaborative, so just groups individuals that I meet with on a regular basis. I think the most fun thing we did in the last week is we actually, all of our department heads participated in an orientation for our council candidates, and so I believe we were able to provide just a great starting foundation for those that participated to really understand the town and how it functions. So that was, staff just did a great job, I believe, sharing all that information.
All right, item 9, closed session. There's none, so I'll move to item